In a dense forest, a huge, insect-like monster appears before a party of adventurers. One of them, a young man with spiky black hair, grips his weapon, vowing to crush the creature in a single, decisive blow. The scene shifts to a peaceful field where a farmer tends to his crops. He looks up in alarm as a similar, though much smaller, insectoid creature buzzes toward him. He recognizes it as a streamer as it gets closer. He reacts instantly, shouting as he thrusts his pitchfork forward, impaling the creature in midair. He sternly warns it not to touch the vegetables he so carefully grew. The threat is neutralized, and a moment of quiet settles over his vast, cultivated lands. He gazes into the distance, his thoughts drifting. He reflects that until half a year ago, he too was something else entirely. The memory surfaces. Half a year ago, he was an adventurer, clad in armor and wielding a massive sword. A companion's voice cuts through the recollection, chiding him for relaxing while facing a swarm of slimes. He remembers the constant pressure. As his party members noted the swarms of smaller bugs appearing, they resolved that there was no other way but to push forward. He could only offer a strained smile in response. Elsewhere, a different kind of hunt is underway. A companion excitedly informs a blonde warrior named Aseris that his concurrent viewer count has exceeded 5,000. Aseris grins with sharp confidence, declaring that it's time. His companion panics as a large, black poisonous amoeba appears, identifying it as a level C monster and urging an escape. But Aseris remains perfectly calm, stating there is no need to run. He moves with a confident smirk, explaining that showing the very moment of the hunt is what makes a hunting stream worthwhile, as he effortlessly slices the amoeba monster in two. With a confident smile, the streamer Aseris addresses his audience, thanking them for watching and telling them to look forward to the next broadcast. Despite his public persona, he was disappointed. The viewer count had only reached 5,023, not enough to recoup his investment. As one of his companions runs up, apologizing for being late, Aseris internally fumes over the lackluster results. After the stream, his guild members offer their critiques. One suggests they should have made the gelatin monster bigger to generate more excitement. Another questions if Aseris' reaction was too stiff, while a third cruelly remarks that the hunt had devolved into a cooking stream in his absence. Watching from a distance, Uloose marvels at his guild leader's creativity, always coming up with new ideas for streams. Having observed enough, he turns to leave, deciding it's time to go back and review their plan. 50 years have passed since the establishment of video streaming technology. This magic, now easily accessible to all, has fostered an environment of fierce competition. Aseris' expression contorts into a sinister grin, his ambition laid bare. For his guild, Blazing Serpent, to become #1 in the world, he vows they must produce even more flashy, sensational streams. During a later stream, Aseris addresses his audience with an urgent announcement. His viewers note his uncharacteristically serious demeanor. He then turns his attention to Uloose, coldly informing him that he must leave the guild. Uloose is struck down with shock. In the guild office, he demands to know why he's being fired. Aseris, seeing his confusion, snaps his fingers. He remarks that Uloose doesn't seem to grasp the situation and decides to let the accuser speak. Another guild member steps forward. He declares that he will begin, claiming to have witnessed Uloose stealing the guild's money. To Uloose's disbelief, the man proclaims he has proof. The proof is a grainy recording from the office, taken the previous night. Uloose protests that the distant view isn't enough to prove it was him, but the stream's viewers are already convinced. They reason that the figure must be him, as he's the only one in the guild who carries a big sword, and declare him the culprit. As he stood accused, the disembodied voices of the stream's audience flooded the air, a chorus of condemnation. They called him a criminal, laughed at his nervousness, and debated whether he should be fired or reported, all convinced of his guilt. To compound his misery, a female guildmate stepped forward, tears welling in her eyes. She claimed he had touched her almost every day, despite her pleas for him to stop, declaring she was terrified. Uloose, horrified by the blatant lie, could only shout for her to stop. His desperate denial was met with a theatrical scream. Pushed past his limit, Uloose lunged toward his accuser, demanding she let him go. From across the room, Aseris watched the scene unfold, declaring that raising a hand against a valuable companion made everything clear. He pointed directly at Uloose, his face a mask of righteous fury. As the guild leader, he bellowed his final judgment, ordering Uloose to leave the guild immediately. The moment the stream was cut, the tense atmosphere vanished. Aseris and his two collaborators burst into celebration. The woman asked how her crying performance was, while the other man admitted he was nervous too. Aseris gave them a high five, congratulating them on a job well done. He gloated about how well the recording turned out, praising their technical department. He boasted that the guild had everything needed for such productions: actors, props, costumes, and editing. However, the celebration was interrupted. Another guild member fell to his knees before the group, demanding an explanation from the guild leader. He insisted that this charade had gone too far. Aseris simply told him not to be so noisy. His plea was met with violence. Aseris grabbed a handful of the man's hair, yanking his head back. He sneered, questioning why the man acted as if his departure would be a great loss for the guild. The man, face contorted in pain and disbelief, cried out that of course it would be. He had been doing his best to support everyone. He insisted, confused as to why Aseris was pretending otherwise. His hand trembled as the crushing reality set in. This was too much. He had worked so hard because they had promised to teach him streaming techniques if he contributed to the guild. It had all been a lie. He lay defeated on the ground as Aseris loomed over Uloose, roaring that he shouldn't get his hopes up. Aseris declared that Uloose had always been a burden to the guild. He then leaned down, adding with a cold satisfaction that, in the end, Uloose had at least contributed something. With that final insult, Aseris stood tall, a malicious grin spreading across his face as his collaborators watched. He boasted that they had just achieved the highest number of concurrent viewers in the guild's history. He threw his head back in triumph, exclaiming that with 8,000 viewers, they would soon attract major sponsors. His companions celebrated the achievement, though one noted that breaking the 10,000 viewer barrier was still tough. For Uloose, the memory of that moment was painful, but now, as a streamer himself, he resolved to have a fun stream. He greeted his audience with a wide, cheerful smile, introducing himself as Gashu and welcoming everyone to his show, Old Man's Farm Garden. He began to explain his farming methods, presenting a beautiful red tomato. He shared that he had originally planted bitter tomato seeds, but used a special fertilizer from a nearby cave, which made them incredibly sweet. A viewer named Nyo Chin-san entered the stream, and Gashu warmly welcomed them, thanking them for watching. However, not all viewers were impressed. A comment from an unknown user appeared, dismissing the stream as boring. The negativity struck a nerve, and for a moment, Gashu felt his resolve waver. He reminded himself not to get depressed, recalling his vow to become an inspiring streamer like the one he admired. Making an interesting stream, he realized was harder than it looked. Just then, his first viewer, Nyo Chin-san, sent a message of support, saying they found his streams relaxing. Gashu's spirits lifted, and he thanked them for the encouragement. The kindness of strangers was a stark contrast to the cruelty he'd experienced at his former guild. As he reflected on this, a system notification popped up on his screen. He turned his attention to the alert, wondering what it could be. It was an important warning, a reminder that many streamers forget to end their streams and accidentally show private content, urging caution. He mused that as a low-level streamer, this wasn't a major problem for him, but he should still be careful. He prepares to resume the stream, but a sudden, violent explosion erupts from the nearby riverbank, sending a plume of smoke and debris into the air. From the smoke, a massive, reptilian creature emerges, wreathed in flames. He recognizes it with grim familiarity, muttering that the big red lizard is back again. His viewers quickly identify the beast. It's a fire dragon, a new Class A monster recently classified as dangerous by the Adventurers Association. The chat fills with alarm. They point out that a Class A danger requires a special hunting team and frantically urge the old man to run. Beside him, a tomato plant begins to wilt from the intense heat. His priorities, however, are elsewhere. He screams for the dragon to stay away, terrified that his tomatoes will wither. His viewers are aghast, telling him to forget the vegetables and run to the house, though they quickly realize a wooden structure would offer no protection. Believing him doomed, they watch as he sprints into action. Instead of fleeing, he leaps onto the beast's back, unsheathing a massive broadsword in midair. With a single, fluid motion, he decapitates the fire dragon, stunning his audience into silence. He lands softly, his hat knocked aside, and brushes his hair back with a weary hand. His viewers can only stare in disbelief, wondering just who this supposed old man truly is. Watching from afar, a young woman with long, light hair clasps her hands together, her face flushed with admiration. She whispers to herself how impressive Gashu-san is. His attention snaps back to his farm, where he finds his sweet corn scorched by other monsters. He questions why these creatures are becoming more common, then roars in fury at the beast for ruining his nearly harvested crops. His viewers marvel at his power, though some urge him to prioritize his own safety over his vegetables. A new wave of excited viewers vow to tell their friends about the stream. Unmoved, he faces two new shadowy monsters, his sword held ready, promising no mercy if they continue to threaten his garden. His stream, with its small but growing audience, replayed the unbelievable event. Newcomers arrived, drawn by whispers of something interesting, only to be met with a scene that defied all logic. Their initial curiosity, expressed in simple greetings, quickly turned to shock. Viewers questioned if they were truly seeing a fire dragon. The footage showed the farmer, Gashu, narrowly evading the beast's maw before delivering a single, cataclysmic strike that obliterated its head. The audience was left reeling, trying to reconcile the image of a simple farmer with a grim-faced warrior wielding a massive broadsword. Their confusion flooded the chat. Was this an agricultural stream, or had they stumbled into an entirely different, far more violent, genre? On a broadcast, footage plays of the adventurer Gashu in combat. He effortlessly fells a massive, giraffe-like beast with a single, explosive strike. Viewers comment in awe, with one noting that Gashu's movements are far from ordinary, while another laments their own inability to replicate such a feat against a fire dragon. The viewer count climbs past 17,000. In the present, however, the farmer Uloose is simply enjoying a quiet moment, taking a satisfying bite of grilled corn. The broadcast footage lingers on the defeated beast, a testament to the incredible skill displayed amidst the crops. His meal is interrupted by a beep from his screen, which is flooded with comments. Uloose looks up, a horrified realization dawning on him. The stream has been on this whole time. Flustered, he quickly apologizes and shuts down the broadcast. He briefly considers the record number of viewers he had, but feeling tired, decides to worry about it tomorrow. Elsewhere, a young woman with a smug expression observes the chatter on her own screen. She notes how lively things have become, as unseen people comment on how crazy the stream was. She leans back with a satisfied smile, considering the first step of her plan cleared. She's already a fan of this person, she thinks, even if he is bragging a little. Standing before a massive board covered in complex diagrams and notes, she clenches her fist with determination. She declares that from this day forward, Gashu-san will become a legend. Her sentiment is echoed by viewers, who eagerly make plans to watch his next stream together and surprise him, certain they're witnessing the start of a massive new trend. The next day, Uloose checks the final statistics from his accidental broadcast. He stares, pale with terror, at the maximum viewer count, 17,190. This has to be some kind of mistake. Despite his fear, he resolves to start the day's stream. He offers a simple greeting, but is immediately met with a flood of messages. Viewers welcome him, call him handsome, and even apologize for past criticisms. Utterly bewildered, Uloose can only wonder if they've all stumbled into the wrong broadcast. He attempts to start his stream for the day, announcing a lesson on how to properly chop wood. His audience, now numbering over 5,000, immediately protests in the comments, questioning if they're in the right stream and declaring his topic boring. They demand to see the kind of action he displayed yesterday. In response, footage from his previous stream shows him effortlessly cleaving a massive log in a single, powerful strike with his greatsword. The viewers are stunned, one asking if he really did it in one hit. He feels a quiet satisfaction, realizing his methods weren't wrong after all. 2 days later, life in the town of Mo's Riff continues as usual, with villagers milling about the central market. As Uloose walks through the market carrying a crate of his harvest, a young man named Roy greets him. Roy tells him the whole town is talking about him, remarking on how famous streamers must be since almost no one in their town used to watch streams. Elsewhere, a town crier reads an article to an eager crowd, announcing the story of a promising rookie in the search for the origins of the man with the great sword. It is he who is spreading the news of Uloose's exploits. The townspeople, with Roy beaming among them, are ecstatic. They declare that their town's favorite has become a global sensation and that everyone is cheering for him. Later, an elderly villager approaches Uloose, calling him Gashu-san and asking for a favor. The old man explains that he recently passed by the hole where the fire dragon had appeared. His face contorts in terror as he recounts seeing sinister eyes staring up from the bottom of the pit. He confesses he's been too afraid to go near it ever since and begs Uloose to investigate. Uloose calmly agrees. He tells Roy he will go during the day, worried that if a creature is still around, it could cause trouble for the town. Handing over his vegetables, he asks Roy to take care of them. Roy accepts, telling him to be careful. As he departs, the villagers praise him as a great help, with the old man remarking that all he needs now is a good wife. At that moment, a young woman in a dark, hooded cloak approaches, asking if a man named Gashu-san lives nearby. She approached a local woman, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Declaring herself a huge fan of Gashu, she explained that there was something important she needed to tell him. The woman's face split into a wide, conspiratorial grin. Pointing towards a figure disappearing down the road, she urged the girl to follow him right away. Flustered, the young planner stammered her assent. Watching her hurry away, the woman crossed her arms with a satisfied smile. She hoped that, thanks to her matchmaking, Gashu-san would find love. Meanwhile, Uloose arrived at the location he was sent to investigate, a dark, gaping hole in the ground. Holding his lantern aloft, he resolved to go inside. He was not alone, however. Trailing behind, the young woman's earlier confidence had vanished. She wondered how she was even supposed to talk to him now that she had followed him to such a place. She clutched her satchel, shaking her head with renewed determination. This was no time to be chickening out, she thought. Her plan simply had to work. Deeper inside the passage, Uloose knelt down. The lantern light revealed a strange, faint luminescence coating his hand, and he paused, wondering what it could be. The narrow tunnel soon opened into a vast, crystalline cavern. The light from his lantern scattered across countless glittering surfaces, revealing the immense scale of the underground chamber. He stood for a moment, taking it all in. The hole was clearly an entrance to a much larger cave system. Seeing another dark passage ahead, he considered exploring further. With his decision made, he walked toward the next tunnel. From the shadows of the entrance he had just left, the hooded young woman watched him go, her presence still a secret. She felt something drip onto her head from the darkness above. Annoyed, she muttered to herself that Gashu-san shouldn't be streaming while exploring, calling it a waste. Her annoyance instantly turned to terror as she looked up and saw the source. A massive, lizard-like creature with a mouth full of sharp teeth, clinging to the cave ceiling directly above her. As the beast lost its grip and plummeted towards her, Uloose lunged forward, shoving her out of the path of the falling monster with just moments to spare. The creature slammed into the ground where she had been standing. Uloose, having broken her fall, immediately checked on her, asking with concern if she was all right. He held her steady, his expression serious. Her eyes widened in surprise as he questioned her, demanding to know how she knew his name. Before she could answer, the creature recovered and spat a viscous projectile. Uloose reacted instantly, pushing her aside once more and shouting for her to run as the attack missed them. She refused his command, insisting she couldn't run now that she could finally speak with him. Instead, she told him that he should be the one running and, with wide, earnest eyes, declared that she was his biggest fan. Unseen by her, the creature's massive tail swung down. Reacting with incredible speed, he hurled a rock that struck the beast, forcing it to recoil. The immediate threat averted, he turned back to her, still catching his breath from the scare, and asked what she had just said. With the creature momentarily gone, she apologized but stood her ground, stating firmly that she couldn't just leave Gasha-san alone and run away. Uloose listened, a pensive look crossing his face. She then identified the creatures as yandere, explaining that they are normally peaceful. However, she warned that their bodies are extremely thick, rendering physical blows ineffective. As she spoke, pairs of glowing eyes began to appear in the surrounding darkness. She looks on as Uloose quickly forms a plan. He declares he will retrieve his sword and asks her to cover him in the meantime. With a determined look, she agrees, promising to protect him with all her might. As he springs into action, the creatures surge forward. One lunges from below, its massive jaws snapping shut just as the planner leaps clear of the attack. He glances back, suggesting they use communication magic to call for help, but she immediately shuts down the idea. Her hand glows with magical energy as she explains that communication is precisely what she's doing. His destination is just ahead, his massive broadsword lying on the cavern floor. Just as he reaches it, a yandere blocks his path. Before it can strike, a series of glowing rings of force slam into the creature, sent forth by the planner who calls out his old name. The magical assault staggers the beast. Seizing the opportunity, he grabs his sword and with a single, powerful swing, decapitates the monster, shouting his thanks. Now armed, he stands firm amidst the remaining creatures. The planner steps up beside him, ready for the next phase of the fight. After the battle, a triumphant Uloose turns to her, exclaiming that they did it and praising her amazing abilities. She deflects the compliment, insisting that he was the one who truly saved her. Their attention turns to a dark opening in the cave floor. She deduces from the wet ground that it's a path used by the yandere and warns that leaving it open is dangerous, as more creatures could emerge. He readily agrees, declaring they must close all the holes at once. Emerging from the cave, Uloose uses his immense strength to heave massive boulders into place, sealing the entrance completely. With the threat contained, the planner declares that the town is finally safe. She notices a scratch on his face, expressing guilt that he was injured because of her. He dismisses her concern, stating that it's an honor to have been useful to someone so knowledgeable. He clarifies that the mark on his cheek is an old scar from his mercenary days, a reminder of a time when he was much weaker. A memory flashes through her mind, of him in a desperate battle. The realization dawns on her with absolute certainty. He is the very person she has always admired. Realizing she hasn't properly introduced herself, she formally states her name is Misery Aronia, adding that he might recognize her more readily by the name Nyo-chin. The name startles him. He questions if she is the Nyo-chin who always watched his streams, which she confirms with a simple yes. This explains how she knew who he was, but he remains puzzled as to how she discovered his physical location. She explains that she meticulously reviewed his past streams again and again, deducing his location from the background details. Uloose is left momentarily speechless, impressed by her incredible observation skills. Stepping closer, she makes her purpose clear, earnestly asking Gashu to join her and establish a streaming guild in the capital. Uloose, looking stressed, questions why a streaming guild would want to recruit an old man like him. The young woman, Misery, looks on with a concerned expression, her hands clutching the front of her cloak. As they spoke, the sky opened up and a heavy rain began to pour down. Misery's expression shifts to a subtle, knowing smile as an idea seems to form. He shields his eyes from the downpour and suggests they continue their discussion at his house. Misery looks up, her eyes wide with wonder, and exclaims at the thought of seeing Gasha-san's home. His home is a sturdy, rustic log cabin nestled beside a large tree, weathering the relentless storm. Inside, Uloose gestures toward the chair, telling Misery she can leave her things there while he goes to get a towel. She quietly agrees. She places her damp cloak and satchel on the wooden chair. Her heart pounds in her chest, flushed with the unbelievable reality that she is actually visiting his house. He returns, offering her a towel to dry herself. As she turns and thanks him, his eyes widen in surprise at what he sees. His gaze falls upon her. Without her cloak, it's clear her clothes are completely soaked from the rain, clinging to her form. She looks up at him, flustered and vulnerable. She, now wrapped in a dry shawl, smiles warmly and insists he just call her Misery. A blushing Uloose asks if she has a change of clothes, to which she admits she did not bring any. He panics slightly, worrying she'll catch a cold, and offers to prepare some of his own clothes for her. Misery insists it's fine since she trains regularly, but then the implication of his offer hits her. Her eyes go wide with shock and excitement at the thought of wearing something of Gasha-san's. While she changed in the other room, Uloose waited anxiously by the table, sighing to himself. He felt flustered, admitting internally that he didn't know where to look. He suddenly stood, deciding abruptly that he needed to start a fire, and bumped into a chair in his haste. His attention was then captured by the documents Misery had brought. Picking them up, he was bewildered to find they were filled with extensive notes about him. Analyses of his personality, his secret martial arts, his past activities, and even future streaming plans. One particular observation stood out to him as amazing. A note stating that his streams don't upset anyone. Just then, Misery emerged, apologizing for the wait. She wore one of his oversized shirts, explaining that the pants were too big. Uloose, completely flustered, first apologized for looking at her papers, then shouted that she should at least wrap a towel around herself. After they settled by the fire, Uloose asked about the papers. Misery confessed she had been writing them for a long time, as she had always wanted to stream with him, a desire that grew after seeing his banishment stream. Their discussion was interrupted by a knock at the door. A voice announced the guild master was there with a female guest, and Uloose told them to let her in. The door opened to reveal Aseris, leaning casually against the frame with his companion. He announced he would get straight to the point, but Misery cut him off with a firm no. Smirking, Aseris mockingly asked if she was trying to join his fan club. She ignored his jibe, stating plainly that she came to talk to Gashu. Aseris nonchalantly informed her that Gashu had already left. Her world shattered. Misery collapsed to her knees in despair, realizing she was too late. While his companion glared down at her, Aseris feigned ignorance when asked where Gashu went, simply stating he didn't know. He then turned back to Misery, extending a hand and offering her a place in his guild. He claimed that with an act as cute as hers, she would surely become a top performer. As he and his companion turned to leave, he bid her a curt goodbye. Misery cried out for them to wait, but the door slammed shut. She stands her ground, her expression hardening. She declares that she has no intention of working under someone like him as a joke. Her refusal is met with immediate hostility. The woman with twin tails, who had been standing by, steps forward, demanding to know what Misery is doing. She points an accusatory finger, stating that she has been listening quietly, but that Misery has been nothing but rude to Aseris. The accusation ignites Misery's fury. Her eyes widen in rage as she shouts back, questioning who is truly being rude. She roars that for what they did to Gashu, she will never forgive them. Her outburst is met with a chilling response. The woman with twin tails' eye twitches in annoyance, asking who Misery thinks she is. As she speaks, a dark, viscous liquid begins to drip from her hand, a strange power manifesting. Before the situation can escalate, Aseris intervenes. He grabs his subordinate's arm, chiding her for so easily revealing her power and reminding her that its value lies in being unknown. He then turns to Misery with a disarming smile, apologizing for his subordinate and making a new offer. If she joins them, he will give her Gashu's contact information. She is unimpressed by the offer. She turns away, stating that if that's the case, she will simply search for him herself. With a final, dismissive glance, she announces she is leaving, her expression shifting from a polite smile to a blank, determined look. As she departs, she reflects on the encounter, certain they will eventually realize the magnitude of the talent they have just driven away. Sometime later, the memory of the door slamming shut echoes in her mind. She clenches her fist, venting her frustration to someone else, explaining how infuriating it is that Gashu's true abilities and charm aren't known to the public. The person she is speaking to is Uloose, in his farmer's attire, sitting calmly at a table. He listens patiently, finding it a bit embarrassing to hear such praise. He asks why she's so interested in him. In response, she thrusts a document forward, declaring that she will explain everything right now. She leans in close, her face inches from his, her intensity startling him. She passionately declares that with him, they will definitely create the best streaming guild in the world. Uloose, taken aback, can only think about how close she is. He looks down at the flustered young woman, who apologizes profusely for her forwardness. He asks if she is all right, suggesting that since it's difficult to continue under the current conditions, they should leave for the capital. Her sudden proximity startles him as she clings to his shirt. She explains that it began raining unexpectedly and asks if she can wait inside his home until it stops. In the doorway, a drenched man looks on in disbelief. Once inside, and by the warmth of the fire, he awkwardly introduces his friend, Roy. Roy offers a hesitant greeting, while Misery wonders aloud about the strange circumstances of their meeting. Later, after the rain has passed, the two men stand on the porch. Roy, having been brought up to speed, says he more or less understands the situation and asks Uloose what he intends to do. Uloose admits that he wants to try, but there are complications. He elaborates on his hesitation, mentioning his duty to the fields his parents left behind and the growing concern over monster attacks that plague the villagers. Roy listens patiently before advising him to simply do what his heart desires. The advice resonates with him, forcing him to confront the question of what he truly wants to do. His contemplation is interrupted as Misery appears, now clad in a dry set of adventurer's clothes, proudly announcing they are ready. Uloose turns to Roy and asks him to escort her to the local inn, a request his friend readily accepts. As they walk away, Roy remarks to Misery that the villagers will be sad if Gashu leaves, just as they were when he first left to become a mercenary. Misery looks back toward the house, quietly wondering if he will follow. She observes that everyone seems to care deeply for Gashu. Roy confirms this, acknowledging how helpful he is to the community, but expresses his hope that Uloose will take this chance for himself. Meanwhile, back at the farmhouse, Uloose studies the documents Misery left behind. His focus is broken by an elderly villager outside, demanding to know why he returned with a young woman. Ignoring the interruption, he thinks to himself that he has all the information. All that remains is for him to make a decision. He is startled when Misery suddenly thanks him, explaining that their talk was an important one. She then declares they should prepare a feast in celebration, leaving Uloose completely bewildered. The suggestion immediately draws a crowd of villagers, who enthusiastically embrace the idea. They call for the meat from a dragon hunted recently, and warmly welcome Misery to their town of Mosrif, inviting her to stay and eat, even as some wonder about the reason for the sudden festivities. Roy steps in, telling Misery he will explain the situation and gestures for her to follow him. As they walk, he casually asks if she is underage. The village of Mosrif rests peacefully in a valley, nestled between sprawling, forested mountains. The next morning, Uloose steps out onto the porch of his log cabin, stretching as he greets the day. He finds Misery waiting for him in the clearing below. She greets him and, without delay, asks if he has come to a decision. Uloose confirms that he has, first thanking her and stating that he has read all the documents she provided. From a distance, Roy and other villagers watch the meeting unfold. He looks at her directly, beginning his response by stating that he respects her passion and determination. Hearing this, Misery's face lights up with a hopeful, expectant smile. Her hope is immediately crushed, however, as he firmly declares that he cannot leave the village. She stands stunned, asking why. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a massive shadow passing overhead. A colossal, armored beast with bladed wings soared through the sky. Misery stared up in disbelief, recognizing the creature instantly, a dread wyvern. She quickly identified it as a monster classified as a dangerous species by the Adventurers Association in the capital, immediately suggesting they hunt it and stream the battle. But Uloose dismissed the idea. He told her to stand back, stating that he would take care of it himself before they continued their discussion. Meanwhile, on a viewing screen, the event was already being watched. One observer noted that while it was a dread wyvern, it seemed smaller than usual. A representation of Misery on the screen expressed alarm, questioning if these creatures were now appearing frequently, realizing with a start that one had shown up every single day lately. The realization struck Misery with full force. Her eyes widened in shock as she remembered the creature from the previous day, in Yodoimaru. She couldn't comprehend what was happening in this seemingly quiet village. As the stream of the impending battle began, comments flooded the screen. Viewers confirmed the monster's identity and expressed their shock that another dangerous creature had appeared so soon. One lamented the terrifying state of the countryside, where only the most hazardous species seemed to emerge. The fight was about to begin. Uloose, broadcasting his adventure, announces a sudden wyvern hunt to his viewers. He calmly explains that while the beast has sharp claws, it's no threat as long as one avoids being hit. As if to prove his point, the wyvern lunges, its claws slamming into the ground precisely where he was a moment before. He continues his lecture while facing the creature, noting that it lacks long-range attacks, and its movements are wide and predictable, making them easy to anticipate. An observer watching the stream finds this assessment impossible to believe. Just as he prepares to engage, a crowd of villagers led by Roy storms into the clearing. Roy shouts for Gashu to wait, insisting that they will handle the beast. Uloose turns, startled by their sudden and determined arrival. The villagers, armed with mere farming tools, confidently surround the massive wyvern. They declare that they are there to demonstrate everything they have learned from him over the past 6 months. Both Uloose and Misery, watching the stream, are left speechless by this insane turn of events. In response to the encirclement, the wyvern whips its tail in a deadly arc. Despite the villagers' bold claims, Uloose's protective instincts take over, and he yells at them not to interfere, shouting a warning to watch out. His warning proves unnecessary. To his utter amazement, the villagers, the elderly man, the young boy Roy, and an older woman, all dodge the wyvern's attacks with impossible agility. Uloose watches, stunned, realizing just how much they've progressed in only 6 months. They immediately transition from defense to a coordinated offense. One woman throws an egg, splattering it across the wyvern's eyes. As the beast recoils, another villager cracks the armor on its leg, while 2 others land simultaneous blows on its head with their tools. Another villager seizes the opportunity, jamming a 3-pronged farm tool into a joint in the wyvern's armor and prying it open with all his might. The relentless, synchronized assault from all sides overwhelms the great beast. The villagers have taken complete control of the battle, their movements fluid and their purpose singular. Seeing their chance, Uloose shouts out the wyvern's weak spot, the gap in its neck armor. Roy, now drenched in the creature's dark blood, hefts his weapon and drives it deep into the identified point with a powerful roar. He then turns, a wide grin spreading across his face, and declares that they will be having grilled wyvern tonight. As the villagers celebrated their impossible victory, Uloose threw his fist in the air, roaring with pride for them. Beside him, Misery could only stare, her mouth agape in disbelief at what she had just witnessed. The sentiment was shared by the viewers watching the stream. The sight of the slain wyvern surrounded by simple farmers sparked a wave of awe and curiosity. Voices from afar questioned where this incredible village was, with many expressing a desire to learn from the man they knew as Gashu. Among the victorious villagers, Roy, still catching his breath, gave a confident thumbs up, declaring it was a piece of cake. In the background, Uloose continued his celebration, shouting that everyone was amazing. His outward joy, however, masked a deep introspection. He clenched his fist, realizing he might have been overestimating his own importance. He had rejected an invitation, telling himself it was out of concern for the villagers. But now he understood that was just an excuse to avoid a challenge. With his resolve hardened, he turned to the resting group, his greatsword strapped to his back. He stood over them and called out, his voice firm, demanding their attention. He made his stunning declaration. He was leaving the village and heading to the royal capital. Misery looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise, whispering his name. Instead of protest, his announcement was met with overwhelming encouragement. Roy clasped his hand, exclaiming that this was what they had all been waiting for. The other villagers echoed the sentiment, assuring Uloose that they supported whatever he wanted to do most. They urged him to go, moved by their unwavering support. Uloose looked out over the familiar landscape of his home and offered his heartfelt thanks to everyone. His emotional moment was abruptly interrupted. Misery leaned in, whispering urgently that the stream was still live. The realization struck Uloose, and his expression shifted to one of pure shock. He quickly recovered, a sheepish grin spreading across his face as he admitted he'd forgotten to end the broadcast again. Deciding to face the situation head-on, he resolved to say a proper goodbye to his audience, bolstered by a comment reminding him to be confident with so many people watching. He continued his announcement to his viewers, confirming his departure and revealing his plan to create a new streaming guild. The response was immediate and positive. His audience understood, calling the plan promising and thanking him for their support, which he reciprocated with excitement. With his decision made and his supporters behind him, he turned to his companion, Misery, who was now ready for the journey in a traveling cloak. "Well, let's go," he said with a determined smile. She responded with a single, enthusiastic yes, and together, they set off on the path away from the village. A covered wagon, pulled by a swift, horned beast, travels down a dusty road. Riding along, Uloose wonders aloud about the concept of requested streams. Beside him, Misery explains what she means, showing him a device displaying posters for potential jobs. One for procuring rare food ingredients, and another for exploring the depths of a dungeon. She clarifies that once he registers with the guild association, he'll be able to accept these streaming requests from them. Uloose finds the idea intriguing. She continues, suggesting they first need to plan the content for their initial stream. Deciding they will proceed with the two options she just presented. Misery then turns to him, asking for confirmation that he has indeed registered as an adventurer. Uloose affirms that he did, 15 years ago. Her eyes sparkle with excitement at the news. Clasping her hands, she declares that they must do plenty of subjugation and exploration streams, certain that it will be thrilling. He tempers her enthusiasm, noting that doing the same thing repeatedly can become boring. Having looked at viewer comments, he feels variety is important, even suggesting a stream dedicated to talking about vegetables would be interesting. Smiling warmly, Uloose places his trust in her, saying that with Misery, he feels they can do all sorts of streams and that he's counting on her. From her seat in the wagon as it crests a hill, Misery thinks to herself that he can leave it all to her, giggling with delight at the possibilities. They arrive at the royal capital, Graham, a bustling city teeming with life. For Uloose, the lively atmosphere feels nostalgic. As they walk through the crowd, a young man at a nearby table, Roy, greets Uloose, remarking that it's been half a year. Misery's attention is caught by a nearby event. She points out an arm wrestling match being streamed, featuring a competitor named Zuri-san who had ranked 53rd in the previous day's viewer rankings. She then gestures towards another spectacle, an eating contest, also being streamed. She excitedly explains that it has a prize of 1 million G, the highest ever, making it a hot topic across the city. She asks Gashu if he plans to participate in any of the ongoing events, but he politely declines with a smile. He'd rather find an inn and drop off his things, remarking on how much she seems to love streams. His thoughts drift back half a year, to a time when he couldn't even discuss streaming with his friends. He wonders how Aseris and the others are doing now, the memory tinged with the shadows of their betrayal. Meanwhile, in an intermediate dungeon on the outskirts of the royal capital, Aseris and his party flee for their lives from a monstrous, flaming beast. He screams in frustration, questioning why such a powerful creature is in a dungeon of this level. The winged beast lunges, catching Aseris by surprise. He shouts for the rear guard to defend, but they are too slow. With a sickening crunch, the monster's jaws clamp down on his companion's arm. Defeated, Aseris falls to his knees on the dungeon floor. Viewer comments flood in, mocking his failure and noting that his guild has been struggling for the past half a year, ever since someone was fired. His expression twists into a manic grin. He recalls viewers claiming his failure is due to Gashu's absence and that other streams, like the one where Gashu was expelled, were far more entertaining. A dark realization dawns on him. Everyone wants to see people struggle. He bolts, abandoning his bewildered companions. He declares an end to his subjugation streams, vowing to create an entirely new trend. The scene shifts back to the reception lobby of the Graham Guild Association. Uloose and Misery approach the counter, where a receptionist welcomes them. Uloose states his intention to register a new guild, and she hands him the necessary form. He begins filling it out, but pauses when the receptionist informs him that only the guild name and base address are left. He admits to himself that he hasn't decided on either one yet. As he ponders, the receptionist's attention is drawn to someone just arriving behind them. With a look of surprise, she asks, "Excuse me, are you perhaps?" A young woman with a bright, cheerful expression steps forward, clasping her hands together. She declares herself a fan of Gashu, leaving Uloose utterly stunned and speechless. Uloose, still reeling, demands to know how she could possibly know his streamer name. The guild receptionist interjects, asking them to quiet down. The fan explains that her work requires her to watch many streams, and she happened upon Gashu's just as his viewer count skyrocketed. Her enthusiasm is palpable as she gushes about his flame dragon slaying stream, calling it wonderful and so refreshing that she rewatched it multiple times. This praise makes Uloose blush. The fan then turns to Misery, calling her a friend and offering her help. When she asks if they have a guild base, Misery accepts the friendly gesture. Hearing their need, the fan immediately offers a solution, stating she has a property she highly recommends that would be perfect for their growing guild. She offers to arrange a viewing right away, telling them to wait outside. Both Uloose and Misery are taken aback by the wonderful and timely offer. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a flamboyant streamer named Weiss begins his broadcast for the Cute Girl Discovery Channel. He greets his listeners and promises them a higher quality stream than usual, cryptically mentioning he has a trump card to play. His search leads him directly to Misery. With a dramatic flourish, he approaches her, calling her his blonde kitten and asking for a moment of her time. Uloose watches, startled, as Weiss's viewer count instantly explodes from a few hundred to over 4,000. He leans in, continuing his over-the-top flattery. He compares her to an angel or a fairy descended to the human world. Misery simply lets out a quiet, unimpressed sigh in response. Unfazed, he strikes a pose and introduces himself as Weiss, asking for her name in return. She plainly states that her name is Missouri. Before Uloose can say anything, Weiss erupts with joy, exclaiming that even her name is cute. He then produces 2 ornate tickets from his sleeve, holding them out for her to see. Misery looks at them and asks what they are. Weiss's eyes gleam as he reveals the tickets are for Chartreuse, a luxurious restaurant in the capital renowned for its stunning night views. He adds that it's a famous spot visited even by the songstress Melvishon. The extravagant offer leaves Uloose completely aghast. He watches as Weiss offers the invitation, a strained smile on his face. Interjecting, Uloose accepts the offer on Misery's behalf. Weiss is stunned, retorting with disbelief and asking who would ever want to go out with an old man. In response, Weiss draws his sword, demanding to know who Uloose is and ordering him to get away from Misery. He loudly accuses Uloose of being the rumored sugar daddy, reasoning it's the only way an angel like Misery would be with him. Uloose raises his hands, attempting to calm the enraged streamer. As he tries to de-escalate the situation, Misery steps forward, placing a hand out to stop the confrontation. She warns Weiss that his actions are dangerous, while Uloose looks on with a serious expression. He then moves past her, placing himself directly before Weiss. With arms spread wide, he points out the surrounding crowd and suggests they talk things out peacefully. Weiss merely scoffs, accusing him of being scared. Ignoring the plea, Weiss lunges, boasting of his status as a B-class adventurer. But Uloose moves with impossible speed, sidestepping the blade and delivering a sharp chop to Weiss's wrist. The sword clatters to the ground as Weiss cries out. The streamer howls in agony, his face a mask of pain and tears. Uloose asks with some concern if he is okay, but Weiss, blinded by humiliation, snatches his sword and screams that he is not done yet. He swings wildly again, but Uloose evades each clumsy strike with ease. Weiss grows frantic, wondering why he cannot land a single hit. Meanwhile, the viewers of his broadcast begin to recognize his opponent as the great sword old man. Having proven his point, Uloose calmly asks if they have had enough and if Weiss is ready to listen. The streamer shouts back defiantly, declaring that he will be the one to save Misery. His patience worn thin, Uloose closes the distance in an instant. He raises his hand for a final, decisive strike as Weiss looks on in shock. He unleashes a technique he calls the Dragon Hammer, an open palm strike to Weiss's chest. The powerful blow connects with a deafening boom, incapacitating the streamer and leaving him gasping in pain. He kneels over the defeated Weiss, asking with concern if he struck too hard. The hooded woman who had been watching instructs Weiss to breathe slowly, and he weakly offers his thanks. The hooded woman then clarifies her relationship with Uloose for Weiss's benefit, explaining that they are important companions who plan to start a streaming guild together, not the kind of relationship he was thinking of. Weiss, still dazed, seems to accept her words. She observes the scene with a calm expression, noting to herself that neither Gashusen nor his opponent was truly hurt. Her gaze falls upon Weiss's great sword, lying harmlessly on the ground, a mere replica. Uloose, now on his feet, approaches Weiss with a friendly demeanor. He playfully pokes him, guessing that Weiss is actually a good person who protects the town's peace while calling it a pick-up line stream, which is why his viewers must love him. He holds up a ticket that Weiss must have dropped, wondering what to do with it. The hooded woman points out that Weiss has already departed and suggests he simply return it the next time they meet, an idea Uloose readily accepts. Later, the two find themselves seated at a table inside a lively establishment named Misery, raising their mugs with a hearty cheers. Over a spread of delicious food, they discuss their future plans. She expresses her delight with the property he introduced her to, and they agree that once they get the key the next day, they will need to go shopping for supplies, as she will have to move in rather than commute. Amidst their planning, she suddenly exclaims that they still haven't decided on a name for their guild. The realization catches Uloose off guard. He expresses his dismay, having thought that detail was already taken care of. He thoughtfully considers the task of choosing a guild name. She suggests something classic, like Flame Serpent of the Scorching Sky, a name that seems to meet her approval. Her grandiose suggestion seems to overwhelm him, and he slumps onto the table with a groan. Seeing his reaction, she smiles and proposes they eat first, a suggestion he readily accepts. He considers his companion's proposal. She suggests they each think of some words and then match them to a classic naming formula. He agrees, thinking it sounds like a good idea. In a shared moment of inspiration, they both raise a finger, having seemingly thought of something at the exact same time. Their lively discussion continues over drinks. Uloose admits he's never been so hyped up talking about streaming before, calling it really fun. His companion laughs, agreeing that she's having fun too. Despite the energy, he confesses that he still can't come up with a good phrase, but reveals he got one idea from looking at her. He reflects internally on her kind and warm nature. As if hearing his thoughts, she closes her eyes with a gentle smile and softly suggests a single word, son. He blushes at the comparison, finding the word a bit much, but he sincerely thanks her for the sentiment. His intense stare makes her nervous as he thoughtfully repeats her suggestion. The sun. Huh. Flustered, she asks him what's wrong. She quickly amends her idea, her eyes wide with hope as she offers a new combination. Golden Sunday. With the name decided, Uloose declares it's great, feeling it symbolizes their bright future. He calls out to the bartender, announcing that they should have another toast. A row of empty mugs stands on the bar, a testament to their successful and lengthy celebration. He decides it's time to leave, telling his companion he'll go settle the bill and that she should wait for him. Having had a bit too much to drink, she clings to his arm, pleading for them to stay and talk some more. He gently insists they wrap things up, turning to leave and apologizing for the wait. His apology goes unheard. He finds his companion has passed out completely, fast asleep on the tavern table. He quietly thanks her for the meal, but a worried thought crosses his mind. He wonders if she can even make it home in that state. With no other choice, he carries her on his back to a nearby inn. At the front desk, he asks the innkeeper if he could possibly get one more room, but the man apologetically informs him that they are fully booked for the night. The innkeeper's refusal leaves him walking through the dark streets, his companion still asleep on his back. He laments not having asked where she lives. However, the innkeeper calls out, offering to make an exception if the room is for his companion, a sly look on his face. The exception is made, and he lays her down on the bed with a thud. Standing over her sleeping form, he has a sudden, troubling realization. His room only has one bed. In a dimly lit room, a young woman lies fast asleep in a bed. Standing over her is Uloose, his heart thumping in his chest as he reaches down towards her. He leans closer, moving over her still form in the quiet room. Suddenly, his heart lurches as the sleeping woman's arms wrap around his neck, pulling him down with surprising strength. He inwardly despairs at her utter lack of caution. Thrown off balance, he lands in the bed beside her, lying motionless and stunned into silence. His face flushes with embarrassment. He internally panics at the thought of an old man like him being in such a compromising position with a young girl, desperately telling himself to calm down as she murmurs his name, Gashu-san. She, however, remains blissfully unaware, smiling and chuckling softly in her sleep as she dreams about receiving many comments. Having managed to get out of the bed, Uloose now sits watch on a small stool, the wood creaking under his weight as the young woman continues to sleep peacefully. As the chirping of birds signals the arrival of morning, her eye flutters open. She sits up with a shift, clutching her head and groaning that she might have had a bit too much to drink. Confused, she looks around the unfamiliar room, wondering where she is. Her eyes fall upon Uloose, asleep in a chair, and she questions his presence. Suddenly, a memory seems to surface, her expression turning to one of pure shock. Just as Uloose stirs and wishes her a good morning, she lets out a cry and lunges at him. Her lunge transforms into a deep, prostrating bow on the floor. With her head pressed to the ground, she offers a bitter, shouted apology for all the trouble she has caused. She rises quickly, insisting that Uloose must rest, explaining that she got so caught up in their conversation she failed to stop him sooner. With an expression of intense urgency, she pushes him toward the bed, telling him to leave the guild paperwork to her. Overwhelmed by her forcefulness, Uloose reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, at the guild association, the receptionist Graham thanks Misery and her companions for their assistance. As they turn to leave, Graham asks Misery what kind of broadcast she plans to create. In response, Misery presents a document. Graham examines it, identifying it as a dungeon exploration application and noting that there is something specific she wishes to request regarding. Her expression becomes concerned as she reads the location, warning Misery that securing permission for this particular place could be very difficult for a newly established guild. Misery pleads with her, emphasizing that making a strong first impression is absolutely crucial for their success. Graham relents, promising to do her best to negotiate with the guild president. Seizing the opportunity, Misery asks if she could also inform the president about one additional matter. Later, in what appears to be Misery's residence, Uloose prepares to settle in. Misery asks if moving so suddenly is all right with his family. He reassures her that it's fine, as he only lives with his older sister and just needs to inform her. He watches her for a moment, reflecting on her situation. He realizes that, without parents, she lives alone most of the time, driven by her passion for broadcasting. He finds her circumstances to be surprisingly similar to his own. His gaze then falls upon a massive board covered in an intricate network of notes and diagrams. He lets out a gasp of admiration, calling it incredible. Misery smiles, proudly presenting it as their golden sun roadmap to the top. Uloose considers her ambitious plan, remarking that it would be nice if they could make it to the top. With a determined fist, Misery declares with unwavering confidence that, of course, they can. She listened as Uloose, looking at a finely crafted rapier, asked if she could use his sword. Misery explained that watching his broadsword broadcast had inspired her to become stronger, but wielding such a heavy weapon was too difficult. For that reason, she had chosen a rapier. She then eagerly asked if he would train her, just as the Moslif people do. Uloose readily agreed, much to her delight. Her enthusiasm was boundless. Standing before a large, multi-story building with Uloose, she threw her arms wide and declared that, starting today, this would be their base of operations. The property was impressive, featuring a big dining hall with a long table and a spacious, fenced-in yard perfect for farming. Uloose felt it was almost too much for them to be allowed to use. But Misery dismissed his concern, stating it was small compared to what the world's best guild base should be. Fired up by her ambition, Uloose agreed they should get ready with everything they had. They immediately set to work, creating a guild flag, tending the yard, and settling into the numerous private rooms. 3 days later, inside the guild dormitory's office, Uloose was on a video call with Roy. He apologized for leaving all the field work to him, but Roy assured him it was fine. Uloose confirmed that he now understood the basics of their new operation. He mentioned that he'd heard from Misery about an A-rank adventurer coming for a monster subjugation request, a topic Roy had just been about to bring up. His conversation was cut short by a sudden creak from the door, startling him. He called out, asking what was going on. On the screen, Roy explained that while the monster numbers had only recently started increasing, it was an unusual situation, prompting talk of sending adventurers to study the Moslif's monster ecosystem. The door burst open to reveal Misery, wrapped only in a towel. Beaming with excitement, she announced they had received permission to explore an S-rank dungeon. She sheepishly admitted she had been in the shower and got too excited to wait. Uloose was flustered by her appearance, while Roy, still on the video call, looked on in shock. She quickly realized her state of undress and, shouting for him not to look, dashed out of the room. Uloose was left stunned, thinking the situation was too much for him, as Roy covered his eyes on the screen. After the commotion subsided, the two sat for a meal in the dining hall. Uloose brought the conversation back to business, asking about the S-rank dungeon permission. Misery explained her intentions. She was planning a broadcast with a major impact. She explains that with so many people streaming across the world, they need a project that will grab significant attention. Without viewer interest, they won't secure the necessary funds to continue their work. He expresses his doubt, stating that such a flashy approach isn't their style. Misery reassures him, clarifying that they will gain attention through safe and enjoyable broadcasts. She then asks if there was any particular reason for his dedication to streaming. With a serious expression, he confirms that there is, and that it's important. He follows up by asking if she knows of a streamer named Melvis. Misery confirms that she does, of course. His story begins in the past, back when he was a member of the Adventurers Guild. He explains that Melvis saved him. A memory surfaces of his younger self, sitting dejectedly, lamenting another week with no requests. He continues, recalling that he wasn't interested in streaming and was left behind when his comrades moved on to the streaming guild. He stares at a notice seeking help from monster subjugation. His search for work led him to join a guild called the Blazing Serpent. The guild's flamboyant leader welcomed him, expressing his anticipation to work with a new adventurer. But his time there was unfulfilling. He rarely went on subjugations, instead being stuck with odd jobs. During this period, he received the devastating news of his parents' death. It was in that dark time that he happened to watch her stream. The screen before him lit up, and her voice reached him. On it, Melvis performed, her presence radiating a brilliant, comforting light that cut through his despair. He continued his story, explaining to Misery that after that fateful day, he watched Melvis's stream every day. Before long, he found himself wanting to be just like her, to create streams that could bring something meaningful to the viewers. Misery listened intently, a gentle glow surrounding her as she agreed. She understood completely. That soothing voice drew everyone in. She then revealed that she had tried streaming on her own in the past, but hadn't worked out. Uloose, taking a bite of his meal, confessed that he had also studied streaming, but his own attempts had never gone well. Her expression then shifted to one of bright realization. She explained that she came to understand her true passion, making charming people shine even brighter to bring joy to everyone. It was with this new purpose that she found him, Gashu, She thanked him for seeing something in her and declared with excitement that from the next day forward, she would share his charm with the world. The following day, as they prepared for their first broadcast, a holding message displayed on the screen. Misery admitted she was nervous, and Uloose, trying to calm them both, pointed out that her anxiety was making him tense as well. With a deep breath, the stream went live. Uloose introduced himself as Gashu Krosner, and Misery followed, announcing her name as Misery Aronia. Together, they welcomed their audience to the very first stream of their newly launched guild, Golden Sun. Instantly, the viewer chat flooded with messages. Some wondered who the beautiful girl was, while others expressed surprise at the high viewership for a new stream. A few even recognized Gashu, identifying him as the Great Sword Old Man. The viewer count had already soared past 10,000. Misery stared in disbelief, exclaiming that the numbers were amazing and that their stream was already a massive success. Uloose, equally stunned, murmured that for a new stream, viewership was normally in the double digits, not the thousands. Regaining his composure, Uloose decided they should stick to their plan. As a viewer expressed interest in learning more about Misery, she took her cue, dramatically unfurling a large banner and announcing that it was time to reveal their guild slogan. With a confident smile, she held the banner high for all to see. It boldly declared their ambition. As a streaming guild, we're going for number one. She then revealed the second part of the slogan, which read, bringing smiles to those who watch. The seemingly contradictory statements left the viewers momentarily confused, questioning what they had just seen. She struggled to present their new guild banner, but in her haste, held it completely upside down. Uloose quickly pointed out her mistake, exclaiming her name in exasperation as viewers commented on the blonde beauty's clumsiness. He then took the lead, presenting the banner correctly and announcing their ambitious goals to the massive audience. They would aim to bring smiles to everyone while simultaneously striving to become the number one streaming guild. The viewers' reactions were immediate and varied, with some offering encouragement and others expressing doubt about a new guild starting at A rank. Acknowledging the difficulty of their path, Uloose began to discuss their next stream. The following day, at the main gate of Graham, two men awaited their arrival. The taller of the two, a man with long, light hair, greeted them cheerfully, introducing himself as their guide, Ober, and his muscular companion as Sigurd. He asked if they were the members of Golden Sun, confirming their assignment to guide the new guild on their first official exploration, a venture that viewers had already deemed recklessly ambitious. He continued with a patronizing smile, offering a hollow apology for any criticism they might receive from their guides. He then revealed their own formidable credentials. He was an S-rank adventurer, and Sigurd was A-rank. Behind him, both Uloose and Misery bristled at the condescending implication. Uloose turned to Misery, his own surprise evident, and quickly explained the situation. To access certain high-level dungeons, a special key was required, which necessitated the supervision of high-ranking adventurers to act as guides. With the arrangements understood, the group set out from the city. Ober confidently called for them to move out, and Misery, though still a bit flustered, stammered her agreement as they followed behind the guides and their wagon. Their journey led them to the base of a towering cliff, where a massive, glowing magical seal barred the entrance to a cavern. This was their destination, the formidable S-rank dungeon known as the Blue Crystal Cave. Ober stepped forward, presenting the special key, a rectangular card inscribed with symbols matching those on the glowing barrier. Holding it aloft, he began to chant the words of activation. The key responded to his words, erupting in a blinding flash of magical energy. When the light subsided, the magical barrier had vanished, revealing a dark, arched passageway into the mountain. With a welcoming gesture towards the ominous entrance, Ober calmly invited them to proceed. He laid out their terms with a detached air. They would remain on standby, watching the stream from the entrance. Should Uloose and Misery reach the dungeon's deepest recesses, the guides would assist in retrieving any valuable items. However, he made it clear that if the pair were to perish, he and Sigurd would simply turn back. His partner, Sigurd, reacted with disbelief, questioning how a mere C-rank adventurer could have been granted permission for such a dangerous undertaking. He wondered aloud if there was more to them than met the eye. Perhaps they were incredible adventurers in disguise. Meanwhile, in a monitoring room, two guild members watched the stream. One recognized the dungeon's monstrous inhabitants from a recent broadcast by Uloose. His colleague, seeing the danger, cried out in alarm, convinced the pair were marching to their deaths. His panic turned to stunned silence as he looked closer at the adventurer's record displayed on the screen. He stammered in disbelief, realizing that this C-rank adventurer had single-handedly defeated 5 flame dragons. Back at the dungeon entrance, a smirk played on Ober's lips. He amused himself that the main adventurers guild must be just as curious as he was. It was time to see what this unusual pair was truly capable of. Unaware of the scrutiny upon them, Uloose and Misery descended into the Blue Crystal Cave. Uloose led the way with grim determination, while Misery followed closely, her attention fixed on a glowing data slate. Broadcasting live, Misery greets her audience, announcing that she and Gashu are in the Blue Crystal Caves. She explains their objective, to investigate a monster confirmed in the deepest part of the cavern a month prior. As viewer numbers climb past 19,000, she asks Gashu if he thinks the conquest will be easy, but but he looks on with a nervous sweat. As they venture deeper, Misery notes the mounting pressure as the concurrent viewer count surpasses 10,000. Just then, a pack of snarling beasts emerges from the shadows. She identifies them for the stream as Danger Class B Bloodwolves, cautioning that when they form a pack, their threat level becomes far greater. Facing the pack, Gashu grips his greatsword, remarking that since he's fought wolf-type monsters before, he should be able to manage. From behind him, Misery holds up her streaming interface and shouts encouragement, telling him to do his best. He glances back at her, a bead of sweat on his brow, as she offers a bright, unwavering smile. Turning away from her to face the threat, he has an internal realization. This isn't like watching her through a screen. He has always been chasing her image from afar, and now, being this close feels like a dream. Her voice cuts through his thoughts, urging him to have confidence. She declares that his strength is the real deal. Bolstered by her words, Gashu stands firm before the snarling bloodwolves. He drops into a low stance, invoking a powerful technique, Origin of the Four Gods. As he prepares to strike, the entire wolf pack leaps at him in a coordinated attack. In a single, blinding sword flash, he unleashes his attack. The blade arcs through the air, and in an instant, all the attacking wolves are struck down, their bodies littering the ground around him. Misery rushes to his side, congratulating him enthusiastically. The stream's chat erupts with amazement, questioning the unheard-of school of training that allowed him to defeat 5 enemies at once. With a sly smile, Misery dons a pair of glasses to address her audience, explaining that Origin of the Four Gods is an ancient martial art that can only be used by the Beastman race. Meanwhile, watching the stream from a nearby stone archway, Ober and Sigurd react to the revelation. Ober remarks that this explains the secret to Gashu's movements and strength, but he is perplexed, stating that it's a technique no one other than Beastmen should have been able to use. Back in the cave, Uloose is asked how he managed to grasp the phantom martial arts. He explains with some awkwardness that he was looking for a video for morning exercises and accidentally found one detailing the Beastman's techniques. He continues, stating that he simply mimicked the movements every day for his health and eventually was able to perform them. This simple explanation leaves Ober, who is watching the stream, utterly shocked, while Misery seems merely amused. His disbelief is palpable. Ober mutters that even he couldn't figure out the technique. The stream's comments flood with praise, calling Gashu a genius and noting how incredible his feat is, something even their skilled relatives couldn't replicate. Beside him, Sigurd dryly suggests that if Ober likes it so much, he should just ask Gashu to teach him. He adds a light jab, telling Ober he isn't being honest with his feelings. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Misery addresses her audience with a confident wink. She builds anticipation, wondering aloud what techniques they might see next, and telling everyone to stay tuned. Further into the dungeon, surrounded by defeated monsters, Uloose lets out a sigh, commenting on their sheer numbers. Misery informs him that he's already defeated 50 and asks if he'd like to rest. Taking a seat, he asks how much of the dungeon they've cleared. Misery consults her device and reports they are 2/3 of the way through, but her expression suddenly shifts as she notices something ahead. Her attention is drawn to a dark, stone doorway embedded in the cavern wall. She points it out, noting that the room it leads to isn't on her map. They enter the unmapped room to find a large treasure chest. Misery excitedly explains that such hidden rooms often contain treasure. Uloose seems hesitant to open it while streaming, but she assures him it's fine, as it also serves as an official report of their findings. Lifting the lid, they discover a large glass jar. Misery immediately identifies its contents as fulgura. Uloose stares in wonder at the luminous substance within, remarking that it's shining as if it were alive. He watched in amazement as Misery opened the jar, releasing a tiny, glowing creature with a soft pop. She explained that it was a type of fairy that could serve as a light source. He smiled, placing his trust in the small being as it hovered near him. "I'm counting on you," he affirmed. The fairy zipped away, becoming a bright orb of light that illuminated the cavern ahead as Misery watched it go. With the path now clearly lit, Uloose expressed his relief. Misery, however, apologized for her naivete, admitting she hadn't anticipated just how dark an unexplored dungeon could be without a lantern. Suddenly, a thunderous crack echoed from the ceiling. A massive swarm of steel bats burst forth, their numbers overwhelming. Uloose knew fighting them with a greatsword would be difficult if they scattered. He immediately ordered Misery to stay back. As the bats swarmed, he called out to the fairy, asking it to shine a light on his hand from the side. With the light now positioned perfectly, he gripped his greatsword, its surface gleaming. He began to invoke a technique, Origin of the Four Gods. The technique was called sprinkling water over dead leaves. He moved with impossible speed, his greatsword a blur as it sliced through the swarm. The stream's viewers were stunned, remarking that his speed was unnatural for such a weapon and that the Lord of the Margood territory would surely want to recruit him. He pressed his attack, determined to finish the job. As the carnage unfolded, Misery pushed a pair of glasses on her nose, her expression shifting to that of an eager analyst. Announcing that the action might be too fast to follow, she offered to explain exactly what was happening, much to the delight of her audience. She began a rapid-fire breakdown. It was a technique of stringing slashes together. He cuts down from an upper stance, then slices up on the return, adds a flight change with a diagonal slash, and follows with a right side upward slash. The viewers marveled at his ability to perform such complex movements at high speed with a greatsword, while Uloose himself remained silent, focused entirely on his work. He found himself swarmed by small, pig-faced creatures clinging to his back. Flustered, he apologized to Misery, begging her to stop as it was too embarrassing. His tone shifted to panic as he saw a larger monster dive towards her, and he screamed for her to run away. But she did not run. With a swift, elegant motion, she drew her rapier and lunged, piercing one of the creatures. She spun and slashed, dispatching another with a sharp cry, her blade a blur of motion. She stood over the fallen monsters, clicking her tongue in annoyance, muttering that she was still in the middle of her explanation. Her viewers, however, were ecstatic, proclaiming her strength. The moment was broken as Uloose rushed to her side, anxiously asking if she was all right. Startled, she could only stammer in response. He turned away, his expression grim, declaring that it was too dangerous and they should retreat. Misery followed close behind, countering that there was no problem at all, especially since she had proven capable of fighting. She, however, was beaming with excitement. She pointed out that their concurrent viewer count had surged past 76,000. She reassured him that she was fine, reminding him that he had been training her, a fact that one of her viewers noted with envy. He gently took her hand in his. While he understood that attracting attention on the stream was their goal, he stressed that the most important thing was for them to return safely. He looked at her earnestly, instructing her not to hesitate to retreat if things became difficult, because he could not bear for her to be injured. Misery agreed, though she quietly thought his level of worry was unnecessary. She couldn't contain her delight, pressing her hands to her cheeks as an irrepressible grin spread across her face. Composing herself, she suggested they get back to the stream, realizing she had left her audience behind again, a habit one viewer noted was becoming a regular thing. They pressed onward, finally arriving at their destination. Before them lay a vast, dark chasm, spanned by a single, narrow stone bridge leading to an imposing structure on the far side. They had reached the deepest part of the dungeon. As they started across the bridge, the stream's viewership continued to climb. Viewers noted that their concurrent ranking had reached number 2, speculating that they might even hit the top spot. Another pointed out that the popular streamer, Song Princess Melvis, had yet to begin her broadcast. She and Uloose approached the final set of doors, a grand, imposing structure marking the entrance to the dungeon's heart. Beyond the threshold, a breathtaking cavern unfolded, its walls and ceiling lined with enormous, sparkling crystals. Misery gasped in wonder at the sight. She commented on the sheer beauty of the place, certain that the scenery itself would captivate their audience. Uloose, however, directed her attention further into the cavern. In the distance, a massive, reptilian beast lay sleeping, small flames dancing along its back as a low growl rumbled from its chest. The sight of the creature sparked a debate among their viewers. Veteran followers were unconcerned, confident that the greatsword uncle could handle it. Newer viewers, however, expressed alarm, recognizing the beast as a high-danger class monster. As he cautiously approached the slumbering beast, Misery urged him to beat it to a pulp. Uloose sighed, expressing his reluctance to strike a creature that wasn't actively hostile. His hesitation gave Misery a moment for closer inspection. She had first dismissed the creature's bluish tint as a reflection from the surrounding crystals, but now she realized its hide, the flames it emitted, and even its strangely swollen neck were all genuinely blue. Suddenly, the creature's eye blinked open, fixing its gaze directly on the swordsman. A wave of panic washed over Misery, and she screamed for Gashu to retreat immediately. The beast erupted with a deafening roar, lunging forward as a torrent of fire spewed from its maw. Uloose threw himself aside, just in time to avoid the blast. Misery watched, stunned by the sudden ferocity, realizing with dawning horror that this was no ordinary flame dragon. Its neck flared, and 2 strange appendages sprouted from its head as it loomed over them. Misery identified it with certainty, a flame dragon variant. The term was unfamiliar to Uloose, who could only stare in confusion. He calmly assessed the creature, reasoning that if its body structure was unchanged, its movements would be predictable. He wondered what else was different, aside from its ability to spew flames. Misery, her expression serious, explained that a variant is a species whose appearance matches a known creature, but whose ecology differs. She added that the existence of a flame dragon variant had never been publicly confirmed. Taking in this new, dangerous information, he simply acknowledged it with a quiet understanding. His assessment complete, he faced the colossal beast as it loomed over them, its massive head eclipsing the cavern ceiling. With his great sword held ready, he looked up at the monster and declared with unwavering confidence that it didn't seem like a big deal. Facing the gigantic monster, Uloose assesses the threat. He remarks that if its movements are the same as a standard flame dragon's, it shouldn't be a major problem. From a safe distance, Misery watches with concern, thinking to herself that they don't yet know if its behaviors are truly the same. The beast suddenly charges forward with a deafening rumble. Uloose shouts for Misery to stay put and be careful, then plants his greatsword firmly into the ground, bracing for impact as the creature closes in. It unleashes a torrent of blue flames. Uloose holds his position, believing the range of the breath attack isn't very long. He plans to close the distance the instant it stops, but the fiery blast continues unabated, far longer than he anticipated. His confidence wavers as Misery shouts a warning that the flames show no sign of stopping. Sweat beads on his face as he stares in disbelief, exclaiming aloud at the incredible duration of the attack. As he clenches his teeth, Misery provides a critical insight. She explains that for the creature to breathe fire continuously, it must possess a unique internal structure that separates respiration from combustion, allowing it to inhale air for its lungs while simultaneously fueling its flame sac. Uloose immediately grasps the implication of this weakness. With this new understanding, he leaps into the air and hurls his greatsword with immense force. The blade spins like a disc as he calls out the technique. Butterfly's waltz. Misery watches in awe, recognizing the move as an axe technique of the four gods, remarking on how incredible it is that he can perform it with a greatsword. The approaching weapon causes the beast to flinch. The spinning greatsword curves wide, missing the dragon as it ducks its head. With his weapon still in the air and not yet returned, Uloose is left defenseless. The creature's throat begins to glow, signaling another imminent attack. At that critical moment, Misery acts. She thrusts her hand forward, shouting for them to close their eyes, and unleashes a blinding flash of light. The dragon recoils, stunned and disoriented by the sudden blast. Misery immediately yells for Uloose to seize the opening. His greatsword having returned to his hand, Uloose lunges forward. He brings the massive blade down in a powerful, decisive slash, striking the stunned creature with full force. The battle is won. Uloose gives a confident thumbs up, while Misery cheers victoriously, her fist raised in the air. Unseen observers praise their splendid teamwork, with one specifically commending Misery for her crucial support. Standing over the defeated dragon, he listens as Misery celebrates their victory with unrestrained joy. She exclaims that their livestream was a great success, though she admits to a moment of fear. He confesses that he was also careless and feels ashamed of himself. He then looks up at a small, glowing, butterfly-like creature hovering in the air and offers his thanks to it as well, much to Misery's surprise. She recalls him calling out to the Fulgura earlier and asks if he is somehow able to communicate with them. He flatly states that, of course, he cannot, causing Misery to slump in disappointment as the tiny creature lands gently on his outstretched finger. He clarifies that since the fairy is a living being, he simply wanted to properly convey his feelings of gratitude. Misery looks at him, touched by the sentiment, and softly murmurs his name. An unseen observer comments on what a wonderful thought that is, noting that most people only think of fairies as common tools for controlling magic. Inspired, Misery reaches a hand out towards the glowing spirit and declares that she will be kindred to them from now on. Another voice agrees, adding that it's thanks to the fairies that they can even watch these streams. As Misery places a hand on his back, remarking that he seems happy, Uloose's expression suddenly sharpens. He senses something amiss. Reacting instantly, he grabs a startled Misery and pulls her in his arms, spinning away just as a massive crystal structure behind them begins to crack and violently shatter. He holds Misery securely as the crystal formation behind them finishes its violent collapse, settling into a pile of rubble. Turning his attention to her, he asks if she is all right. Flustered by his closeness, Misery stammers that she is fine, though her blush betrays her racing thoughts. She looks past him at the now-blocked passage, identifying it as the entrance. Uloose assesses the situation, concluding that it would be faster to smash through the rubble with his sword techniques than to try and move it. The unseen viewers express their disbelief, questioning if he can truly shatter such a massive pile of crystal. He explains that he needs time to store up power for such a feat and asks Misery if she wants him to put her down. She gratefully accepts. As they stand ready, the ground begins to tremble. A massive, dark hand erupts from the rubble, shaking the cavern. From the debris rises a monstrous figure, a colossal crystal golem. Misery realizes this must be the gigantic monster they were warned about. The viewers identify it as an ancient type, a fitting challenge for an S-rank dungeon, and speculate that a sword will be useless against its hard body. Meanwhile, outside the collapsed entrance, Ober and Sigurd feel the tremors. Ober declares it's time for them to intervene, reasoning that with the entrance blocked, Uloose and Misery are trapped and won't survive long enough for a rescue. He sprints towards the rubble, telling Sigurd to wait for him. Inside the cavern, as the golem looms, a message of encouragement flashes from the viewers, urging Gashu not to hold back. He quickly assesses their dire situation, realizing there is no time to secure a path of retreat. Their only way out is to defeat the massive creature before them. His gaze shifts for a moment to Misery, who draws her own weapon in readiness. A heavy doubt crosses his mind. Can he truly fight this monster and protect her at the same time? He is taken aback when Misery, clutching the hilt of her weapon, declares her intention to fight alongside him, insisting she won't be a burden. He recognizes the fear in her eyes and knows he must act fast to draw the creature's focus. Misery, for her part, tries to steel herself to get the golem's attention, but finds herself momentarily distracted by the intensity of Uloose's expression. Before either of them can make a move, the crystal golem rears back and swings its enormous, jagged fist. As the fist crashes down, shattering the ground and sending crystalline shrapnel everywhere, he yells for Misery to jump left. He warns her not to attack recklessly and to focus solely on evasion. a command she immediately acknowledges. He plants his feet, raising his greatsword just in time to meet another thunderous blow from the golem's fist. The force of the impact drives him backward. Misery cries out his name in concern, but he grits his teeth and assures her he is fine, even as he feels himself being steadily pushed back by the creature's immense strength. Her worry suddenly gives way to a crucial insight. She shouts to him that all golems possess a core that sustains their form, and she knows where this one's is. It has to be the single, glowing eye in the center of its head. Understanding dawns on him just as he deflects a smaller projectile with the flat of his blade, the clang of the impact echoing through the cavern. He uses the opening to launch himself into a roll, narrowly avoiding a crushing blow from the golem's other fist as it smashes into the ground where he just stood. With a powerful swing, he brings his greatsword crashing down onto the golem's crystalline face. Misery watches, believing for a moment that he has succeeded, but then she notices with alarm that the eye is no longer there. The massive golem, despite the blow to its face, begins to stir. A low rumble emanates from its crystalline body as it raises a colossal arm. Uloose, still in his attack stance, watches in disbelief, realizing the creature is still active. Its arm crashes down with immense force, shattering the ground where Uloose just stood. He slides back, narrowly avoiding the impact. Misery calls out his adventurer name, Gashu-san, asking if he's okay. He reassures her, explaining that he used a floating body technique to mitigate the damage. She recognizes the technique as the one he used during the expulsion stream. A memory flashes of the villagers calling for his banishment, and she scoffs internally at their foolishness for wanting to drive away someone so capable. The immediate threat snaps her back to the present. As the golem's arm sweeps across the ground, Uloose grabs her hand, yelling for her to keep moving. While they flee, she suggests he use the powerful sword technique he mentioned earlier, the one capable of crushing hard objects. He grits his teeth, admitting that he's at his limit and couldn't even damage the golem. He elaborates on the problem. He lacks the time to gather the immense power required for the technique. Furthermore, aiming at the golem's mobile, retractable eye would be nearly impossible under these conditions. A plan begins to form in her mind. She realizes that if she can act as a decoy, drawing the golem's attention while he charges his attack, they might have a chance. The key, she thinks, would be to somehow immobilize the eye. In the distance, Uloose objects vehemently, refusing to let her take on such a role. Her expression fills with determination. She declares that she, too, is a member of the Golden Sun. With unwavering conviction, she states their goal, to help each other and make it back alive. He looks at her, momentarily stunned by her resolve, and can only utter her name. A realization dawns on him. He knows her true strength from their training together. He understands now that in his single-minded focus on protecting her, he had completely overlooked her feelings and her competence as a fellow adventurer. He looks on, surprised, as Misery turns to him with a brilliant, unyielding smile, cheerfully announcing that she's got it. Caught off guard, he apologizes and formally asks for her help. She calmly lays out her strategy, speaking with an unnerving smoothness even as the golem's massive fist smashes the ground nearby. Acknowledging she's no match for it head-on, she reveals her brilliant idea. She will stop the golem's head, creating an opening for him to land a cool, decisive attack. His surprise gives way to renewed determination. Clenching his fist, Uloose accepts the plan without hesitation, confidently declaring that his next blow will absolutely finish their foe. With the strategy set, Misery gives the command to commence. She slides forward, sword drawn, charging headlong toward the towering crystal golem as Uloose braces himself behind her, ready to fulfill his role in her audacious plan. Facing the colossal crystal golem, Uloose's defender invokes the name of his sensei and the principles of true martial arts. He raises his great sword high before slamming it into the ground, sending a powerful shockwave tearing through the earth towards the towering creature. The golem reacts, and Misery deftly dodges its counterattack, acknowledging its skill. She determines her next move. She must land a marker on its eye. Calling out to Gashu, she announces that she will be borrowing his power to do so. Following her declaration, a series of sharp impacts strike the ground around the golem, cracking its crystalline form. Observers comment that spirits cannot attack directly, wondering if this is another one of her flash attacks. The impacts, however, were merely a diversion. A massive, third leg-like appendage suddenly erupts from the golem's body. Uloose's defender watches in shock, questioning aloud if this could possibly be Misery's doing. The new limb slams down, but Misery has already leaped into the air, narrowly avoiding the blow. She breathes a sigh of relief, admitting she had panicked for a moment. Now airborne, she calls out to the golem, drawing its attention towards her. As its eye focuses on her, she flicks a small, glowing object from her fingertips. The projectile streaks through the air like a miniature comet, aimed precisely at the golem's central eye. The marker hits its target, embedding itself directly in the creature's eye. With her objective complete, Misery hops from a nearby crystal shard, repositioning for her assault. From within the golem, the marker begins to shine, its light visible through the creature's crystalline body. Misery declares that it's useless for the golem to try and absorb it. Thanks to Gashu, she can see its exact location. A brilliant light flares from the golem's core. Her eyes lock onto the glowing weak point she has created. With a look of intense focus, She readies her blade, preparing to strike. She descends upon the golem in a flurry of attacks, hacking and slashing at its form. The observers marvel at her extraordinary movements, realizing she is using the sounds of her attacks to guide the golem's attention while the light from the marker grows ever brighter. They shout encouragement, urging her onward. She shouted her command, breathlessly urging him to aim for the top of the golem's head. His expression hardened with focus. Heeding her call, they launched themselves through the air in a synchronized assault. As the golem's massive hand descended to crush them, he prepared to unleash one of the four Divine Garden's ultimate secret techniques. His blade struck true, a technique he called Sting Xuanwu, shattering the golem's crystalline arm with immense force. The creature rumbled and collapsed into a pile of rubble around him. Onlookers roared their approval, hailing the greatsword old man for his incredible feat. He sat catching his breath as Misery celebrated their success, exclaiming that Gashu was as amazing as ever. She was thrilled by the flood of positive comments from their viewers, who praised them both and eagerly awaited the next stream. A short while later, back at their camp, Misery formally ended the broadcast. She thanked everyone for watching and told them to look forward to the next one. Uloose, looking relieved, simply stated he was glad it was over safely. Just as they finished, two other adventurers emerged from the cave. The one in the lead, Ober, expressed his disbelief that they had actually managed to defeat the crystal golem. He strode towards them with a condescending air, asking them what they thought of his party's strength. Uloose turned, his expression unreadable. The man then scoffed, finding it laughable that a C-rank adventurer could accomplish such a thing. Misery gasped in shock at the revelation of Gashu's rank, while Uloose could only offer a weak confirmation. He stands silently as Ober continues his condescending assessment, suggesting that if Uloose had been a major guild, he would have been pushed to take a promotion exam. Ober muses that perhaps Uloose was simply in the wrong environment. Beside them, Misery begins to growl, her anger palpable. The words trigger a memory of a past encouragement. In a flashback, his former companion Sigurd claps him on the shoulder, telling him to take the promotion exam when they get back and not to forget to study. A younger, more optimistic Uloose readily agrees. That memory is shattered by Ober's mocking laughter in the present. He declares with a wide, cruel grin that the only reason they cleared the dungeon was pure luck. Stung by the accusation, Uloose shouts for him to wait, but Ober presses on, his expression turning sharp. He lectures that Uloose is absolutely lacking in both knowledge and experience, claiming he only realized the danger of an S-rank dungeon after entering, making him no different from an average person. The harsh words conjure another image from his past, his old party, utterly spent and leaning on one another for support in the depths of a treacherous dungeon. Returning to the present, he turns to Misery with a look of regret. He confesses that he was the one who pushed for them to challenge a brand new, high-difficulty dungeon back then. He admits their preparation and research were lacking, but he had blindly believed that with his skills, they would be fine no matter what. He looks down at his hands, the memory still fresh. He learned the hard way that it wouldn't have been strange if they had all died at any moment. He finally understood that dungeons couldn't be conquered with brute force alone. Ober's voice cuts in, a smug smile playing on his lips. He remarks that Uloose dying so easily would be a real problem. He turns his back on them, addressing Sigurd. He mentions that while he doesn't watch many streams, he has taken an interest in this guild. With a final glance over his shoulder at Uloose, he tells him to keep providing entertainment for a long time. The confrontation fades into one last memory of that former party, huddled inside the carcass of a slain flame dragon. When a companion expresses disbelief that they're going to eat it, Uloose explains that it's a common meal in his village. Hearing that the meat around the neck is delicious, the party agrees to start dissecting the creature. He sits in the Golden Sun Guild dormitory, watching a broadcast delivering the day's hottest streaming news. The energetic catgirl streamer announces that the most eye-catching story is the Rising Star Guild Golden Sunday. She excitedly reports they hit over 100,000 concurrent viewers at their peak and surpassed 80,000 fan registrations. The broadcast subject, Misery, laughs, admitting that hearing the success stated so plainly is a bit embarrassing. Uloose, holding a mug, smiles and reassures her that it's still awesome. She raises her glass, giddy with excitement, proclaiming that at this rate, their next stream will definitely break 1 million concurrent viewers. Uloose observes her with a tired expression, noting how quickly she got drunk again, thankful they are only in the dorm. Her enthusiasm proves too much, and she soon slumps onto the table, fast asleep. With a peaceful smile, she murmurs that she's really glad she kept searching all this time. Before she passed out, however, she had suddenly perked up, realizing there was a story she hadn't told yet. Announcing it was time for a tale from her past, she prepared to speak as Uloose poured her another drink, agreeing to listen. Her story began 10 years ago on a highway near Graham. A much younger Misery tearfully recalls how she had secretly followed her parents, only to fall from their rumbling carriage. The fall left her stranded and alone. From the wilderness, a massive, snarling wolf-like beast emerged and lunged toward her. The terrified child could only let out a piercing scream. The beast's jaws snapped shut with a violent crunch. Its fangs, however, sank not into the child, but into the forearm of a young adventurer who had thrown himself in front of her. As the creature mauled his arm, The young Uloose looked at the crying girl, his only concern being her well-being as he asked if she was okay. He grits his teeth as the wolf's fangs dig deeper into his arm, blood spraying from a wound. With a grunt of effort, he drives his blade into the creature's side, silencing its pained howl. Despite the agony, he forces a smile for the young girl, Misery, reassuring her that since his big brother is an adventurer, he's used to this. The bravado fades as he collapses next to the slain wolf, just as Misery's parents rush into view, calling her name. She runs into their embrace, crying out for her father and mother. Her mother holds her close, explaining she saw a child Misery's age fall from their carriage and questioning why she was in such a dangerous place. The young Misery tearfully shouts back that it's because they always leave her and her sister behind. Nearby, Uloose clutches his bleeding arm, expressing his relief that her parents have arrived safely. He turns to leave, but a fellow adventurer grabs him, chiding the rookie for trying to leave the team without permission. The man insists they must report to the association quickly if they want to receive their reward. The memory fades back to the present day, where Misery concludes her story for Uloose. She reveals that the child he saved was her. She had later gone to the Adventurers Guild in Graham to thank him, but with only the description of a newcomer with an injured arm, she was unable to find him. She looks at him intently, asking if he is Gashu. He sniffs the air, wondering to himself if he has really aged so much. Their conversation is cut short by a broadcast announcing breaking news. The news is delivered by an energetic catgirl streamer, who excitedly reports that the concurrent viewer rankings have changed. The songstress Melvis has announced a new song, vaulting her channel into first place. She continues, revealing the staggering number of viewers, 1,083,562. Watching the stream, Misery sighs that their top spot was short-lived. Uloose agrees, admitting that Melvis is on a completely different level. He is taken aback by her comment. He points at the screen, asking Misery to repeat what she just said. With a proud smile, she declares that her sister is amazing, and that she needs to work harder too, leaving Uloose utterly stunned by the revelation. He stared, trying to process the information. Misery, seeing his confusion, calmly explained that she hadn't told him yet, but the famous songstress Melvis was, in fact, her older sister. The revelation sent his mind reeling, his jaw hanging open in disbelief. He stammered, asking if she was all right before trying to connect the dots, wondering if she had started streaming because of Melvis's influence. Misery calmly corrected him, explaining that she was the one who started first and had, in fact, taught her now famous sister everything she knew. Her words conjured a memory from the past. A younger Misery at a grand piano, accompanying her sister, Melvis, as she sang for an audience. Misery explained that she found great joy in seeing her sister's presence and music spread to people all over the world. That joy, however, was in the past. Now, her focus was different. She looked at him with renewed determination, explaining that with him by her side, she could challenge herself in ways that were different from her sister's path. Together, she declared, they would liven up the guild even more. But her passionate declaration was cut short as she suddenly slumped forward onto the table, fast asleep. Uloose could only stare, dumbfounded by her abrupt change. Later, after carrying her to bed, he sat alone in the quiet room, the floorboards creaking softly. He looked down at his own hands, her words echoing in his mind. Liven up, huh? He considered their future, his reflection visible in the window pane. There would be more exploration streams, he knew, but if things stayed as they were, it would just be the same thing over and over again. A critical voice from a recent memory surfaced, sharp and condescending. It was Ober, reminding him that their recent success in the dungeon was nothing more than a stroke of luck. The memory, instead of discouraging him, solidified his resolve. He rose to his feet, a new purpose clear in his mind. If he became a senior adventurer, he could truly contribute to this guild. He knew what he had to do. Looking out into the night, he clenched his fist. The first step was clear. He needed to pass the Adventurer Promotion Exam. For the development of the guild, Uloose has resolved to take the Adventurer B rank promotion exam. He understands that first, training is everything. A principle he honed as the country's strongest farmer. He sits alone at a table, pouring a drink and contemplating his next move. With a quiet determination, he rises and walks out the door. His resolve, however, quickly crumbles. He collapses back at the table, head in his hands, panicking over what he should specifically do, lamenting that he's done this again. His spiral is interrupted by Misery's cheerful voice from upstairs, followed by the sound of her rushing down to join it. Her haste leads to a clumsy fall down the stairs. Uloose, startled, rushes to her side and asks if she is all right. Dazed, Misery confirms that she is, somehow. Once she has recovered, Uloose explains his resolution to take the exam, but confesses he has no clues on how to prepare. Misery suggests they watch exam prep streams to learn strategies. Uloose is amazed that such helpful guides exist, and Misery enthusiastically proposes they watch the Adventurer Rank exam complete strategy guide together. He notes that the exam is only a week away, voicing his concern over the written test. Misery immediately offers to help him with his studies, an offer which Uloose gratefully accepts, telling her it's a great reassurance. And so, their week of intense preparation begins. The days pass with Uloose studying late into the night, receiving tutoring from Misery, tending to his farm, and honing his swordsmanship, showing his dedication to both. When the seventh day arrives, it is the day of the promotion exam. Misery sees Uloose off in the street, waving with both arms and wishing him good luck. He turns back, raising a hand in acknowledgement. She watches him depart with a warm, closed-eye smile, thinking to herself that she wanted to witness his new challenge live. Her wistful smile then hardens with resolve. She clenches her fist, deciding that she should get going as well. Uloose arrives at the entrance to the Adventurer B rank promotion exam venue, his greatsword strapped to his back. He pauses, taking in the sight of the massive courtyard teeming with dozens of other hopefuls, a look of apprehension on his face. He feels immediately out of place amidst the crowd. It's filled with young people, and he senses their eyes on him, making him acutely aware of his age and how much he stands out. As he stands there, whispers ripple through the examinees. They recognize him as the greatsword old man from the streams, marveling at his size and questioning his presence. Some wonder if he's a guest, while another considers asking for a handshake, though they worry it might be a bother. A large, jovial man suddenly steps forward, extending a hand with a wide smile. He introduces himself as Zohayo, confirming that he's speaking to Gashu and enthusiastically declaring himself a fan of his streams. Uloose, taken aback, confirms his identity, but admits he doesn't know who Zohayo is. The man laughs, explaining that he's a fellow first-timer, having been recommended for the exam by the guildmaster. Surprised to find a kindred spirit, Uloose asks why someone like him is taking the test. Before Zohayo can respond, an official's voice cuts through the chatter, announcing that the exam is about to begin. All candidates are instructed to leave their weapons and belongings in the designated waiting room. With a newfound sense of camaraderie, Uloose turns to Zohayo and raises a hand in a friendly gesture, wishing him well. Zohayo agrees with a confident, almost sharp smile, stating that they should both do their best. The written exam commences. The proctor announces that the questions are basic, but a nearly perfect score is required to pass. As Uloose looks at his test paper, his eyes widen in shock and delight. He realizes the questions are the very same ones from the practice problems Misery had him study, a vision of her as a teacher flashing in his mind. He begins to write with incredible speed, his pen scratching across the paper. Filled with immense gratitude for Misery's help, he finds himself filling in the answer boxes with effortless smoothness. His rapid pace does not go unnoticed. Zohayo watches from his desk, thinking to himself how Uloose seemed uneducated in his dreams, yet writes with such speed. The young woman beside Zohayo stares intently at Uloose, her expression hardening with suspicion as she asks aloud, "Are you cheating?" Her accusation is met with a firm denial, but she insists he stop looking around. Ignoring the squabble, a guild proctor announces the start of the physical fitness test. He outlines the sequence: strength, running, jumping, and endurance, and instructs the examinees to form pairs. Uloose, unfazed by the earlier accusation, confidently cracks his knuckles, ready for the challenge. He is promptly approached by a bald examinee who asks to team up, proposing they start with sit-ups where one partner holds the other's feet. Uloose agrees without hesitation. Internally, the bald man smirks, plotting to hold Uloose's feet loosely to increase the burden and sabotage his performance. The moment the proctor shouts, "Begin!" Uloose explodes into motion, performing sit-ups at a blinding speed. His partner's smug expression vanishes, replaced by one of pure strain as he struggles to maintain his grip on Uloose's feet. The saboteur is overwhelmed. He realizes with dawning horror the incredible pressure emanating from Uloose's legs. He feels he'll be thrown off completely if he doesn't hold on with all his strength. A cry of shock escapes his lips. The two are locked in a silent, intense struggle, face to face, as Uloose's raw power pushes his partner to his absolute limit. Suddenly, the force is too much to contain. The bald man is violently launched backward across the training ground. "Sorry," Uloose calls out as his partner is sent flying. He smashes into a stone wall with enough force to shatter it, leaving him embedded in the rubble. The proctor acts quickly, calling for the medical team to cast a healing spell and ordering the other examinees to continue with the test. A healer immediately attends to the injured man. A short time later, the man awakens dazed. The proctor informs him that the strength measurement is complete and that if he is able to stand, he should proceed to the running test. He struggles to his feet, determined to continue. The proctor looks on, acknowledging the man's fighting spirit as he stumbles off to rejoin the exam. As the examinees prepare for the next event, Zohayo approaches Uloose with a friendly smile, asking to join his group for the run. The proctor announces that they will be running in groups of 5. He advises Uloose to keep resting, but Uloose, pushing himself up, refuses. He insists that if he rests, he'll be disqualified, and then he won't be able to interfere, his eyes filled with a grim determination. Ignoring the advice, he and Zohayo take their places at the starting line for the next event, a foot race. As the proctor yells "Go!", they explode into motion. Uloose's speed is overwhelming. He surges forward, leaving the other competitors, including the dizzy saboteur from before, tumbling in his wake. The man can only curse his fate as Uloose vanishes into the distance. Having finished the race far ahead of anyone else, he looks up at the next obstacle, a towering wooden ramp. The next test is jumping. Zohayo shouts encouragement, telling Uloose to do his best. With a quick thanks, Uloose launches himself into the air, soaring high above the ramp in a leap that leaves Zohio staring in utter disbelief. The other examinees below are equally stunned. Watching his silhouette arc against the sky, they marvel at his jumping height, one even wondering aloud if he's some kind of obsessive fan to be trying so hard. The trials continue with the final physical test, endurance. A proctor announces they must run 100 laps around the track. While the others groan in exhaustion, Uloose calmly sips from a water pouch, completely unfazed. Suddenly, Zohio collapses mid-stride with a thud. He looks down in pain, realizing his feet have been pierced by caltrops left on the track. His exam is over. He has failed with 0 points on all measurements. With the physical tests concluded, the examinees gather for the martial arts portion. A female proctor explains the rules. They must choose from the weapons on the table or demonstrate unarmed martial arts. Their proficiency will be judged by masters of each discipline. Uloose addresses the male proctor, asking if there are bonus points for using multiple weapons. The proctor confirms that there are, but warns that he will lose points if he performs poorly with them. Accepting the terms, Uloose firmly grips a large poleaxe, ready to begin. He moved with fluid mastery, demonstrating perfect form with a spear, a hammer, a sword, an axe, and a dagger before finishing with unarmed martial arts. The watching proctors were stunned by his flawless execution with every weapon. He allowed himself a small, satisfied smile, grateful for having learned the gashu on Jin style, a form that could be adapted to any weapon. His incredible display immediately drew a crowd in the exam venue's cafeteria. He was swarmed by other examinees, all shouting their praise. One declared he was in the fan club, another that his performance was incredibly cool, and a young woman begged him to teach her his ancient martial art. He held up his hands, trying to calm the sudden onslaught of admirers. Meanwhile, in a more secluded part of the hall, the saboteur who had injured Zohio sat alone at a long table, slumped over in dejection. He watched Uloose from a distance, realizing this was the infamous plague god he had heard about. A wave of panic washed over him. If the guild master discovered his failure during the exam, the consequences would be dire. Clenching his jaw and glaring with a newfound resolve, he swore to himself that he would get revenge. As he seethed, a commotion broke out. A man in healer's robes rushed through a nearby archway, shouting for the medical team. Uloose turned his head, noting that the man was heading toward the subjugation exam venue. The team emerged carrying a grievously injured examinee on a stretcher. Onlookers commented on the severity of the wounds, a grim testament to the dangers of failure in this next stage of the test. The sight did not faze him. A moment later, a proctor called out, "Next is Gashu Krosner-san." She instructed him to prepare his equipment in the waiting room before entering. He responded with a simple, firm yes. Beyond the waiting room doors lay the subjugation exam venue. It was a vast, open-air arena enclosed by high stone walls and overlooked by VIP viewing seats, built for trials of combat and conquest. From those elevated seats, 2 men observed the arena floor. One remarked that the next contestant was the greatsword old man. His companion dryly retorted, "You're an old man too?" The observers were none other than the Guild Association President, Kate Alman, and the Adventurer Association President, Begin Bremas. Bremas let out a booming laugh at Kate's jab. "Ha ha ha, you've got a mouth on you, Kate Kuhn," he bellowed before adding, "More importantly, please put on proper clothes." Kate simply replied, "It's fashion, fashion." He sits with his fellow observers as Kate Alman thanks Ober for his support during a previous event. Ober replies that it was his pleasure, as he was shown something quite interesting. Their attention shifts to the arena floor below as Uloose emerges from a gateway. The observers immediately notice something is amiss. He isn't carrying his signature greatsword. An examiner reports to Begin Bremas, confirming that Uloose intends to take the exam barehanded. He wishes to avoid killing the monsters, merely wanting to measure his own abilities. Begin Bremas erupts in laughter, impressed by the sheer arrogance and confidence of the man known as Gashu Krosner. Before the exam, he had discussed his strategy with Misery. He explained that the written test had broadened his perspective. Where he once only thought of defeating enemies with his sword, he now understood the importance of creativity and ingenuity. His new plan was to fight by exploiting the monster's own characteristics. He admitted to her then that despite his confident words, he wasn't entirely sure his tactics would be effective. He asked for her judgment on his plan, a hint of uncertainty on his face. Misery simply smiled, understanding his request. Her silent encouragement was all he needed. With renewed determination, he affirmed that everything would be fine. Back in the present, the arena gates rumble open. The subjugation exam is known for its random assortment of monsters, and this time is no different. A lumbering mushroom, a gelatinous poison amoeba, and a club-wielding mob goblin emerge into the arena. He surveys his 3 opponents from across the stone courtyard, a look of understanding crossing his face. He sees his path forward. As the command to begin echoes through the arena, he doesn't hesitate. He sprints directly toward the slow-moving mushroom, closing the distance in an instant and seizing one of its stubby arms. His strategy becomes clear. He knows that getting close to the creature causes it to release poison spores. With a powerful heave, he lifts the entire monster and begins to swing it in a wide arc, intending to disperse those very spores across the battlefield. He swings the mushroom monster like a club, understanding its effects perfectly. While the poison amoeba is immune to physical attacks, the sheer wind pressure from his swing is enough to blow its gel parts away. The poison spores, meanwhile, envelop the mob goblins, who are sent tumbling through the air. The spores settle, leaving the mushroom a withered stalk. The goblins collapse, incapacitated. Uloose knows that without their usual terrain of grass and trees for traps and ambushes, they're nothing special in an open space. He holds the two cores of the defeated amoeba, briefly wondering if he himself is all right after inhaling the spores. With the amoeba and other goblins incapacitated, he closes in on the last conscious one. With a sharp cry of "Dragon Hammer!" he drives the heel of his palm directly into the creature's chest. The final blow connects, and he pumps his fist in celebration, shouting, "All right." From the viewing area, Begin Breema's roars in approval, while Ober watches with a faint smile and Kate Alman observes calmly. His moment of triumph is interrupted by the heavy, dragging sound of footsteps behind him. He turns, startled, to see the massive legs of another examinee approaching, dragging a large shield along the ground. The massive figure trudges forward with a grim expression, his voice low and menacing as he begins to speak. All of you. From their vantage point, Begin Breema's asks who the new arrival is, and Ober wonders aloud if they should intervene and remove him. Down in the arena, however, Uloose decides to let the situation play out. He turns to face the man, asking with a curious smile if he brought his weapon all this way just for him. He starts to explain the rules of the exam, but the large man cuts him off, roaring, "Don't mess with me." The examinee's face twists in fury, sweat beading on his brow. He declares that the renowned Aseris was furious, accusing Uloose of pretending to be ignorant while committing evil deeds. The accusation stuns Uloose. His confident demeanor vanishes, replaced by shock and confusion as he processes the man's words. "Even Aseris?" he mutters to himself. He remains still as the large examinee's face twists in anguish, the man declaring he will never forgive Uloose for making the people who care for him suffer. With a furious roar, the examinee raises his weapon high, vowing to punish Uloose in Aseris's place. During the exam, the sky is suddenly split by a descending shadow. A massive, bird-like monster dives into the arena, snatching a great sword from an examinee's grasp. Below, Uloose and the large examinee stare in disbelief, wondering where the creature could have possibly come from. The great sword is dropped neatly into Uloose's hands. He catches the weapon, startled by its sudden appearance and considerable weight. The creature lands gracefully on the arm of a newcomer, a man with long black hair. He calmly strokes the beast's head, praising it as its talons gently grip his gauntlet. In the background, Uloose watches the scene unfold, holding the gifted sword. The man introduces himself as Seema Bandiger, an S-rank adventurer and beast tamer. He explains that he was asked to observe Gosh's exam. The large examinee, shocked, demands to know who he is and why he is interfering. Seema turns to his beast, ignoring the outburst. He quietly asks the creature if he should get rid of the nuisance first, his tone calm but menacing. At his master's unspoken command, the beast launches forward, swooping low across the courtyard directly toward Uloose and the large examinee, who flinches in surprise. The creature's talons clash against steel as Uloose raises the greatsword to block the attack. He shouts, demanding to know what is going on. Nearby, the large examinee explains to another candidate that Seema is the one who has been interfering with the exam the entire time. The large examinee looks around, confused, but then sees Uloose fending off the beast. A realization dawns on him. Seema wasn't hindering him, but supporting him. Before he can fully process this, the creature reappears and stabs its beak into his shoulder, drawing a cry of agony. In rage, he shouts, "You bastard," and smacks the beast away with his shield. As it tumbles, he throws a handful of caltrops at it, yelling for it to savor the poison. Seema looks on, his calm expression finally breaking into one of surprise. The beast, however, simply opens its beak and begins to suck the poison directly from the wound in its wing. Uloose kneels beside it, holding the injured wing steady, his expression one of intense focus as he observes the creature's unusual healing method. He watched as the beast finished drawing the last of the poison from its leg, its beak letting out a final, soft hiss. The beast's owner, Seema Bandiger, however, seemed overwhelmed by the entire affair. Looking down at the large examinee, still lying on the ground, he declared the situation was too much and insisted they all needed to calm down and talk first. Deciding to de-escalate, he scooped up his small creature and instructed the other examinees to leave matters to the proctors. He then turned to Uloose, who knelt and offered a bottle of alcohol to disinfect the wound. Seema gratefully accepted, thanking Uloose for saving his child. As this peaceful exchange occurred, the large examinee began to stir, struggling against another man's grip and shouting to be released. Ignoring the commotion, Uloose stood and faced Seema directly, wanting to confirm something. He asked what Seema had meant earlier about being asked to observe the exam. Seema met his gaze, inquiring what it was he wanted to know. His tone shifted, becoming sharp and pointed. He questioned how Uloose, a mere C-rank adventurer, had managed to get permission to explore an S-rank dungeon. The implication was clear as he leveled the accusation. "You cheated, didn't you?" The accusation caught him completely off guard. Uloose broke into a sweat, vehemently denying it. He insisted it wasn't cheating, explaining that his party had followed the correct procedures. Far from the tense confrontation at the exam site, within the quiet halls of the Graham Metropolitan Library, Misery Aronia was deeply engrossed in her research. Her concentration was broken by a man approaching her table. He greeted her familiarly, recognizing her as Misery, and tried to jog her memory by mentioning he had accompanied Sigurd the other day. Misery, however, simply stared back with a blank expression, asking, who? He took her lack of recognition in stride, asking permission to sit while explaining his purpose at the library, to study the four divine beast style. Misery offered a polite thank you, asking if he was searching for a particular text. She listened as her companion, Sigurd's acquaintance, leaned over a stack of books and questioned her. He asked if she could use magic, specifically for broadcasting and communication. The question sparked a memory of a time in a glowing cave. She recalled Uloose as Gashu, letting a glow bug escape but then creating his own light. She had been amazed, thanking him and declaring her desire to learn lighting magic. Back in the present, her companion continued, noting that the text contained other interesting spells. He pointed to one in particular, an ancient magic called Skybox, and mused that it looked useful for exploration. Their conversation was abruptly cut short by a stern librarian, who put a finger to her lips and hissed for them to be quiet. Misery offered a quick apology. Lowering his voice, the man changed the subject. He mentioned that after the last stream, Gashu had become a hot topic among the beastkin and might even visit Sukat soon. Misery puffed her cheeks, musing that Gashu was becoming popular across all species and just needed a flashy ultimate move. As he spoke, Sigurd himself approached their table. Startled, the man quickly denied any wrongdoing, then excitedly called Sigurd a for divine beast-style nerd. He began to rapidly explain his knowledge of the style's vermilion bird technique, which could cover a sword in flames using minor spirit's power, all without magic. His loud, rapid-fire explanation once again drew the librarian's wrath. She appeared with a furious expression, demanding quiet with even greater intensity. Mortified, Misery covered her mouth with her hand, realizing she had accidentally raised her own voice in the excitement and needed to calm down. Meanwhile, outside a fortified gate, the confrontation between Uloose and Seema Bandiger continued. Seema gestured to their surroundings, asking Uloose if he truly didn't find the situation strange. Uloose could only manage a weary sigh. He continued, his voice laced with contempt, stating that the existence of adventurers like Uloose was troubling. With a cold look, he delivered a direct threat. Perhaps he should erase Uloose too. He dashes forward with incredible speed, surprising his opponent, a large man with a goatee, who braces for the attack. The two trade a rapid flurry of blows. Seema Bandiger gains the upper hand, kicking the man back before grabbing him by the collar. He taunts his opponent, questioning why people hold him in such high regard when he's nothing more than a muscle-headed, nice old man. His opponent, still off balance, dodges another strike and admits that he finds it puzzling himself. He clenches his fists, confessing that he has no idea what is so great about him, but he's aware that many people are cheering him on. With a look of intense determination, he declares that he doesn't want to betray their expectations and implores Seema to teach him the mindset of a high-rank adventurer. Seema responds with a confident smirk, cracking his knuckles. He challenges the man to make him feel it. The man with the goatee lunges forward with a powerful punch. The sudden shift in intensity catches Seema by surprise, who realizes his opponent just switched gears as they exchange another furious volley of blows. He easily slaps the punch aside, a chill running through his opponent. The man with the goatee freezes, sensing that Seema's entire aura has changed. Seema draws a knife and thrusts forward. The other man reacts just in time, blocking the blade with his armored gauntlet, gritting his teeth from the force of the impact. Before the fight can escalate further, a massive arm slams down between them. Zuri-san, his face a mask of fury, intervenes and roars that it's enough, his expression hardening. He warns Seema that any further action would exceed the bounds of the request. In response, Seema casually dismisses the concern, questioning if Zuri-san truly believes he lost control. With a wave of his hand, he suggests that if his methods are untrustworthy, the dirty job should be given to Ober instead. Nearby, Uloose's defender's hand tightens into a fist. As the tension between the others hangs in the air, a large man with a mohawk turns his attention to Uloose's defender, offering an apology for startling him. He introduces himself as Biggin Bremas, the head of the Adventurers Guild, a revelation that leaves Uloose's defender stunned. He continues, explaining that he has been interested in the adventurer for some time. Bremas reveals that he orchestrated the confrontation during the exam, hoping to witness a serious match against a worthy opponent, but concedes that the situation ultimately caused more trouble than he intended. With the explanation given, Seema turns to leave, remarking to Kate Alman that he, too, was once someone who knew nothing. As he departs, Bremas calls out to him, while Kate lets out a weary sigh. His attention, however, is drawn back to his own results. He is informed that despite the chaos, the exam itself was considered flawless, and he has successfully passed to B-rank. The news does little to lift his spirits. He feels pathetic, overwhelmed by how much has happened. Seeing his state, Seema approaches, extending a hand and offering a lesson on the proper mindset for a high-rank adventurer. He leans in, a gentle smile on his face, and imparts a simple piece of wisdom: learn from your failures. The advice leaves Uloose's defender momentarily speechless. With that, he turns away, concluding his lesson with a simple, "That's it." As Seema departs, Brimas approaches the still confused adventurer with a wide grin, suggesting they now go and check on his partner in the infirmary. He looked down at the newly promoted adventurer and asked if he planned to aim even higher now that he was officially B rank. Uloose's defender confirmed this, stating his belief that if he built up his achievements for about 5 years, he could be evaluated for A rank. The guild head explained that this was correct, but also revealed that to improve the overall quality of adventurers, the association had a discretionary system for the early promotion of qualified candidates. He then extended an offer directly to Uloose's defender, stating he would like to apply that very system to him if he was willing. The adventurer stared back, stunned by the proposal. Sometime later, he stood outside holding his new B rank badge, still processing the fact that he had just been given an A rank license. A sudden pat on the back startled him. It was Misery, who declared his promotion amazing. He explained his hesitation, noting that becoming A rank meant busier missions, which could affect their streaming. He had wanted to consult her first. She quickly waved off his concerns, telling him not to worry. She insisted that she had plenty of ideas for streaming on her own and that he absolutely should not miss this kind of chance. Her encouragement solidified his resolve. He announced that he would give his reply later, realizing with excitement that he could now take on high-level dungeons without begging for permission. Misery looked on, puzzled. His excitement immediately faded as he let out a groan, recalling the great deal of trouble and the number of people involved in getting permission for the Azure Crystal Cave. Putting the thought aside, he turned back to Misery with a smile, stating that they would need to coordinate properly from now on. She readily agreed. With their new understanding established, he suggested they go eat something to cheer up. He added a friendly warning not to drink too much, and she gave a cheerful cry of agreement. Inside the Serpent of Scorching Skies guild dorm, a door is violently kicked open. A man is sent flying across the floor as a furious voice roars. "Are you an idiot?" The source of the fury is Aseris, the guild leader. He berates the man for failing an exam, reminding him the fee wasn't free. Another member tries to calm him, pointing out their guild has few adventurers left. Unmoved, Aseris slams a table, complaining that strict regulations have halted their exploration streams, leaving them with no profit. He fumes that they'd be better off causing a ruckus at a restaurant. His tirade is interrupted by a muscular guildmate, who mentions having seen Gashu at the exam site. He speculates that Gashu must have trained hard since being expelled and proposes an idea. They should try to re-recruit him. He scoffs at the notion, shouting that it's impossible for a deadweight to get strong in only half a year. His attention is then drawn to a screen showing Gashu's stream. Aseris dismissively mutters that he has no time to watch that. He continues to watch, however, and is stunned to see Misery, a former member of their guild, cheering Gashu on. On screen, Gashu effortlessly handles a swarm of monsters, leaving Aseris to wonder how he became so powerful. His disbelief turns to a cold sweat as he sees the viewer count. He insists it must be fake, but the other man points out that Gashu's guild is now wildly popular, with over 120,000 concurrent viewers. Aseris roars in frustration, remembering their own stream barely reached 10,000 at its peak. As he seethes, the man with the top knot adds insult to injury, sheepishly admitting that he joined Misery's fan club. With a cold expression, Aseris tells him to get out. He then roars the command again, declaring that the man is fired and must get out immediately. His frustration boiling over, Aseris slams his fist on the table, cursing the entire situation. He remains hunched over his desk, consumed by his failure. Behind him, his companion, Prim, remarks that she hadn't expected their former guildmate to be so skilled. Her words only stoke the flames of his resentment. He grits his teeth, remembering the past and vowing that soon they will all realize what a gem they cast aside. This bitter conviction twists into a desperate new resolve. He realizes with a start that he must make his own stream flashier and more spectacular than theirs to compete. His thoughts drift to symbols of their success, picturing the city at night. He recalls Chartreuse, the fancy restaurant frequented by the famous streamer diva Melvis, imagining the fortune Gashu's party must be earning from appearances alone. As the envy festers, a dark idea begins to form. A sinister grin spreads across his face as he declares he has a plan. He turns to Prim, his eyes alight with malicious intent. He orders her to get 2 tickets for Chartreuse, leaving her utterly bewildered. Her confusion is of no concern to him. Aseris stares forward, his expression hardening into one of pure vengeance as he quietly vows, "Just you watch, Gashu." Meanwhile, far from Aseris' scheming, Misery and Uloose's defender enjoy a meal. Misery smiles brightly, explaining with unwavering confidence that the ones who will truly learn their lesson are Aseris and his followers.